Pirates Fire Dragon Roar Chapter 301-320. Chapter 301 Wano-kuni. The night shrouded the world, the moon shyly hid behind the dark clouds. No one could see it exuding a soft brilliance, and there was only darkness above the earth. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Well, it's true. Vlad floated lightly above the sky, without the assistance of observation hockey. The keen vision after dragon transformation alone was enough for him to see the scene on the ground below. The night can't block his sight, and the distance can't affect his gaze. The eyes that belong to the dragon are sharp eyes that can see through everything. Really, when I came to this place, I felt that the style of the world changed at once. Vlad sighed with his arms around his chest. It's completely different from the country outside. It's obviously on the sea, but there is such an obvious difference, hey. It's really one. Vlad exclaimed, what a foolish country. On the ground below Vlad, there is a small village. The buildings are low-hanging wooden buildings, and the stone buildings popular on the sea are completely different concepts. With his extraordinary eyesight, Vlad can easily see the difference between the village below and the places he has seen in the past. The small village is surrounded by paddy fields planted with green rice. Vlad can even see the difference. VV's water droplets on the top of the rice due to the rain. He was even more able to see the narrow path that ran through the paddy field and became extremely muddy due to the rain. As far as infrastructure is concerned, it feels far removed from the current country on the sea. However, in terms of the country's style, this small village is somewhat familiar to him. Yes, very similar to the ancient style of an island country next to the country in which he lived in his previous life. This is also natural, because the name of the country Vlad is now in is Wano-kuni, a very special country in the New World. If other mainstream countries in the sea are more like European countries during the Great Navigation and the Industrial Revolution, then this Wano-kuni is more inclined to Japan during the Shogunate era. Wano-kuni is a place that extremely rejects foreign cultures, which is very similar to ancient Japan. They said they were closed to the country. Vlad scoffed at such a view. He had studied history seriously in his previous life. There is really no need to say what will happen. Vlad would not be worried about this country, or rather, even if this country destroyed him right in front of his eyes, he would just sigh unconcernedly, oh, it's so sad, so, that's it. However, Wano-kuni is not a country that can be destroyed so easily. The guys in this country have a power that cannot be underestimated. Wano-kuni is a country of samurai, with a large number of samurai, and a guy who can be called a samurai in Wano-kuni must be a guy with extremely superb swordsmanship. This belongs to the kingdom of swordsmanship, this country with an astonishing number of samurai groups in both quantity and quality. Any outsider who wants to invade the country will be brutally attacked by the samurai. Even if the outsider is marine, with powerful samurai and amazing swordsmanship, this country that has not joined the government can refuse marine warships to enter its port without any retaliation, which is already amazing. Wano-kuni is a very special country. Vlad has heard of it for a long time. Although the people living here are some people who are not easy to get along with or even hate, the country itself is indeed a very beautiful country. The country, cherry blossoms and fine wine, are the most famous business cards of this country besides samurai and swordsmanship. Even the small village in front of Vlad reveals a quiet, peaceful and very beautiful atmosphere. Vlad came to this country to find someone who might be of great help to him, a guy with a high status in this country. This Wano-kuni is very similar to Japan in the previous Shogunate era. It is really similar. The culture and characteristics are very similar. Of course, the political structure of the country is also very similar. The supreme ruler of Wano-kuni is called a shogun, like the shoguns of ancient Japan, and has the undisputed de facto supreme power in the country. Under him are the rulers of various regions. These rulers are called daimyo, that is, the highest lord of the region, and they show allegiance to the general, but in fact, these daimyo have extremely high autonomy. The lord of the general is not subject to the general's control, whether it is internal affairs or military economy. Although he is nominally a subordinate of the general, In fact, it is a country within a country. Under each daimyo, there are many retainers, usually samurai with superb swordsmanship. These retainers are the next-level rulers and also have their own territory. In fact, this country is such a divided country. Power is distributed down to the next level. Of course, even the lowest ruler must have samurai. After all, this country is called the country of samurai. Vlad's purpose in coming to this country is to find a man, a big name in a certain area of the country, but, unfortunately, Vlad doesn't recognize the way. After all, Wano Kuni is a very closed country, and outsiders don't know what's going on inside the country. So, he had to find someone to ask for directions. At the same time, in the small village below Vlad, a very regional scene is being staged. Kenjiro walked on the muddy path with a deep and shallow foot in a guilty conscience. There were frogs chirping in the surrounding world, and Vivi's flash was rippling. It was a beautiful night scene. Damn, is it so late accidentally? The man was a little scared and said, but immediately, I don't know what good memories will come to mind. This man's face put on a very wretched smile, but Shinzi's skills are still outstanding as always. Next time I go looking for her. Call. With a chilly breeze blowing on the back of his head, the man of 5 3 thicknesses could not help shivering. Gudong. The man swallowed a mouthful of saliva involuntarily, and looked around cautiously, with a look of fear. I heard that there have been assassins trying to kill people recently, but I shouldn't be so unlucky, right? Ha ha ha, no, my luck has always been very good. With such a smile, the man encouraged himself. It's absolutely impossible to meet. But samurai are all bastards. They don't care about human life at all. That's what this man said. Oops, what a great thing to hear. Asshole. Some joking man's voice came from behind Kenjiro. Are you insulting the noble samurai-sama? That's not good. I have to punish you for a passerby like you. Exactly. I also want to try my newly minted knife. Chapter 302. Don't speak ill of others behind their backs. I have to say that samurai is really a group of very unfriendly guys. This is true for outsiders, and the same is true for the residents of the country. The samurai class is already the ruling class in Wano Kuni. Even if they are not generals or daimyo retainers, these swordsmanship masters with extraordinary power are not comparable to ordinary civilians. They are a privileged class, no matter who they are. That's how it looks. Whether it's the samurai class, the commoners, or even the daimyo generals, everyone holds the same point of view, and no one thinks there is anything wrong. The solidification of class is unheard of in this country, where rulers are always rulers, nobles are always nobles, the descendants of daimyo are daimyo, the descendants of generals are generals, the descendants of samurai are samurai, and the descendants of commoners are. It is really not easy for civilians to climb up. Swordsmanship. Learning swordsmanship is the only way for commoners to become nobles, but swordsmanship is not easy to learn. Swordsmanship is a family heirloom treasure of samurai, and it is the only foundation to ensure that future generations can continue to enjoy privileges. Few people are willing to share it. Of course, since it is very few, there are also some. There is still such a thing as a swordsmanship school in this country. The establishment of the school is also the vision of many powerful warriors. The Kendokan that was born from this is a place where commoners can get access to swordsmanship. The only way, but unfortunately, what these swordsman masters who can establish a school need are only swordsmen who can inherit and even further the swordsmanship of their own school, and ordinary civilians will not meet the requirements at all, let alone, the Kendo Hall is also charged, and ordinary civilians can't afford it at all. And because of the perennial seclusion and isolation of the country, the commoners don't even have the opportunity to go out to sea. The only choice they can choose is to stay in this country for the rest of their lives, and only to be like their elders, silently born and then silently die. That said, a country where people have no dreams is really the worst country. As civilians, they can only choose to be ruled. Therefore, when Kenjiro turned his head, he slumped on the ground instantly. His face was covered in cold sweat, there was no trace of brilliance in his eyes, and there was only endless fear and despair. He knew deeply that his life would come to an end today, because he was facing a samurai who wanted to try his sword on him, because he got a good the samurai who wanted to test the knife on a living person would never keep their hands because the object of the knife test was a human being, or, in other words, it was because the object was a human being that they would be more excited. There is a gap between the warrior class and the commoners. Except for their own relatives, no one will care about the life and death of a commoner. Hey ha 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 ha. The unknown samurai laughed so recklessly, the hair on the top of his head was shaved, with a bun on the back of his head, he was wearing a blue kimono, a pair of clogs on his feet, and a long knife slung around his waist. Is the image of a standard samurai. You know the current affairs very well. You didn't run away like the guys in front of you. Hey ha ha ha, that's fine. Da 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 da, quote. The samurai walked slowly in front of Kenjiro, and drew out the long sword at his waist. The dim gecko fell on the blade, reflecting some coquettish brilliance. The samurai stretched out his tongue and licked the long sword, smiling, I'll give you a good time. I won't torture you like the guys in front of you. Don't worry, my sword is fast. This uncle's swordsmanship is also superb. It will never make you feel pain. No, no. As if awakened by the words of the samurai, Kenjiro burst into tears in an instant, tears and snot pouring out of his nostrils and eye sockets, his body kept shrinking back, and the whole person was already extremely frightened. Yes, 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 that's it. The samurai was not angry because of Kenjiro's begging for mercy, but he laughed with satisfaction, his expression extremely frantic, that's it. I think something is wrong. It turns out that you are missing your howl. There is no point in killing without crying. Hey ha 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 ha. You can be proud, civilian, your death has contributed to the progress of this uncle's swordsmanship. The samurai smiled and raised his sword. When you arrive in the kingdom of heaven, remember to show it off to others. You actually helped a samurai. This is a great credit that most people can't even imagine. As a samurai, in this kingdom of samurai, climbing up is the swordsmanship you rely on. If you keep getting stronger, you will climb higher and become a higher level ruler. Therefore, keep fighting with others and keep improving yourself. The swordsmanship is what these samurai want to do most. Hey ha 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 ha. The samurai smiled, and the shining blade was already swung down. No, no, no ah. Kenjiro has no intention of resisting at all. At such a critical moment of life and death, all he does is put his hands on his head, close his eyes and shout, cry and cry. As a civilian, he cannot resist a samurai. Such a dogma has always been in his mind. Ding! Some Kiyoshi's voice sounded in front of Kenjiro. Kenjiro held his head and waited for a long time. The pain in his imagination did not appear on him. He opened his eyes, and a man appeared in front of him. Oh, it's really very ethnic. Vlad smiled like this, and let go of the right hand that was holding the samurai's blade. Recently, he likes this kind of action very much, especially when the opponent is a swordsman. He feels that the force is not ordinary. What? My uncle's sword was actually used. The samurai looked suspicious and took a few steps backward in life, and encountered a red light crossroad on the road of life. Who are you? Sign up. The samurai shouted, holding the sword in both hands, the sword pointed straight at Vlad's chin. Guess what? Vlad spread his hands and said casually, I'll tell you if I guess right. Look at your dress. The warrior's eyes narrowed suddenly, are you outsiders? Damn outsider, how dare you invade the kingdom of samurai? The samurai's emotions suddenly aroused, just let you see the power of the Wano-kuni samurai. What a lot of nonsense. Vlad suddenly spread his wings, his whole body was like lightning, and his big hands pressed directly on the warrior's face, directly pinching his face. I have something to ask you, come with me. Whoosh. The fiery red dragon man has rushed into the sky with the samurai. Who? Slumped on the ground, Kenjiro gasped heavily, have you survived? He spread his hands and said in disbelief, I survived. Ha 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 ha. Woo. Like crazy, the man laughed and then cried, emotionally. Wait, outsider, the outsider who saved me. If the daimyo is reported. A smile appeared on Kenjiro's face. Then, how much reward will I get? There. Flames fell from the sky and burned everything. Chapter 303 Curry. Vlad doesn't care much about solving a guy who wants to do things behind his back. It's just an irrelevant role. If it wasn't for someone to ask the way, Vlad wouldn't rescue him at all. It can only be said that his luck was very good. Vlad was about to be hacked to death just as he was about to ask someone for directions. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Of course, if it wasn't for exposing himself as an outsider but hanging out in an extremely xenophobic country, to be honest, Vlad didn't want to kill that guy. Not necessary. Who would go out of his way to deal with such a guy? Don't you think it's a little too cheap? Outsiders, what kind of purpose do you have? The samurai who had his hands and feet broken by Vlad was thrown to the ground by Vlad without any intention of giving in at all. It seemed that the broken hands and feet did not bring him any pain at all, and he questioned Vlad indignantly. Germany. This is the kingdom of samurai. Don't think about doing anything here. This guy who just wanted to try to kill with a knife is now a messenger of justice again, and the appearance of a hero who is not afraid to compromise in order to protect his motherland in the face of brutal enemies is really disgusting. What are you thinking about? Vlad stood in front of him and said, I just wanted to ask the way. Hey ha 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 ha. Samurai smiled, I'm an upright samurai, don't expect me to tell you anything. It's really strange, he's obviously a murderer, a guy with no bottom line, but he is indeed a man who is loyal to his duties. Even if he has foreseen that death is waiting for him next, he can still laugh arrogantly. How strange. I want to know a place. Vlad asked, tell me, samurai, tell me where it is. Curry, where is it? Curry. Samurai was stunned for a moment, his face changed, what? What did you say? You said curry. So, is it for that lord? Is the purpose actually that adult? Don't think I'll tell you. The samurai's expression suddenly changed, and a strange persistence appeared on his face. If it's about that lord, don't expect me to reveal a word. Oh. Vlad raised his eyebrows and smiled, so you really know, that's good. I was worried just now, if you don't know, it will be a little troublesome, and I have to find another one. The guy's asking for directions. But it would be great if you knew. Tell me, where is Curry? Hey ha 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 ha. Stupid guy. The samurai laughed wildly, do you think I'll tell you? Do you think I'll tell you? Well, it's really hard to like it no matter what. Vlad said so, raised his right hand, stretched out his index finger, and a little white gold flame flickered on his fingertips. Then let me show you the means I use in criminal law. Hey! A little flame shot directly from Vlad's fingertips, piercing the samurai's calf like a ray. Samurai Vivi frowned, you thought such an attack would be possible. There. Just when the samurai wanted to make a mockery of his calf, flames began to erupt, and the raging flames directly wrapped his calf in it, and the most intense pain in the world burst out instantly. And, what's even scarier is that the flames are still spreading up little by little with his legs. Not being able to say any more cruel words, this man who seems to have a strong backbone can only mourn now. Enjoy it. Vlad smiled like this with his arms around his chest, because I want to keep it secret, and now the opponents are getting stronger and stronger. I haven't used such a trick for a long time, although it is useless for the strong, but still you can have a good time. Quote. Yeah. Quote. The samurai let out the most terrifying scream. Hold on for a while, my friend. Vlad smiled like this, don't hold back too early. I deliberately controlled the temperature and speed of the flame, so let me watch it a little longer anyway. This samurai now only has the power of screaming. If Vlad's flame does not have hockey defense attached, then it can directly attach to the body and burn, like a Tarsus maggot. Hey! Vlad smiled leisurely. Can we talk now? Dash 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 dash. Oh, it's here. I finally found it. It took me a lot of effort. The samurai, who seemed to be a tough-mouthed, didn't stay under Vlad's flames for long. After the flames devoured his lower body, he wept bitterly and honestly told Vlad everything he knew. And then Vlad mercifully directly burned him to ashes. It was not even dawn, and Vlad had already flown over Kuri. Wano Kuni is actually not that big. After all, it is only an island country. In terms of size, it is not comparable to Alabasta. It won't take long to cross the country. Really, it doesn't seem to be such a special place. Kuri. It is a place name, not a place like a secret realm. In fact, there is nothing special. It is no different from the general Wano Kuni place. It is not very big. It was just around a small city, including the surrounding villages, and it was far from the cities Vlad had seen. However, this place is where the target Vlad wanted to find when he came to Wano Kuni this time. As I said before, although it is nominally the territory of Wano Kuni and falls under the jurisdiction of the general, in fact, the daimyo here is the supreme leader of this territory. I don't know how many years have passed. A certain family has been in command of this area. Unlike all other daimyo in Wano Kuni, the history of this family far exceeds that of ordinary daimyo families. This is a place full of mystery and history. Feeling family. The name of the family is Kazuki, the name of the family that commanded the Wano Kuni Kuri area is Kazuki, and the family crest is a bird that has been spreading its wings. This Kazuki is the Kazuki of Kazuki Oden and the Kazuki of Kazuki Momonosuke. Chapter 304 Kazuki. Vlad's purpose in coming to Wano Kuni is to find a man named Kazuki Oden, who is the current head of the Hiroyuki family, the current Kuri daimyo. X23 US. Com updates fastest. The name of this man, Vlad, has been heard for a long time. It is not the fame he heard in this world, but the information he saw in the comics in his previous life. In fact, this man is not a big man in the world. Fame, the only prestige is also in the mainland Wano Kuni and the distant island of Zo. However, Vlad is well aware that this seemingly insignificant regional lord has an identity that can surprise anyone. This man, Kazuki Oden, used to be a pirate. Yes, as a high-level leader of a country, when he was young at the time, it was a pirate galloping on the sea. I have to say that this is really a very interesting thing. The more interesting thing is that the captain this man used to follow was not an unknown person, or rather, a man who made people excited just to say it. Kazuki Oden, this man used to be One Piece King of Pirates Gold Roger, one of the members of the ship, who had followed Roger to the final island. Duke Inuarashi on the Elephant Island and the boss of the cat-bellied snake followed him to get on Roger's ship. There is no doubt that this man is not well known, but in fact, he is a man who knows everything in the world. What's more interesting is that this man was not on Roger's ship from the beginning. At the beginning, this man was actually a crew member of Whitebeard's ship. At the beginning, he was actually with Whitebeard. Other words, he was poached from Whitebeard's ship by Roger. This is very interesting. The Kazuki clan has been waiting for 800 years. They, and their fur clan are waiting for this man who can bring dawn to this world. Vlad so guessing, perhaps 20 years ago, when Whitebeard and Roger crossed the sea, the Kazuki family had already noticed it. Aware that the man they have been waiting for may have appeared, so Kazuki Oden boarded Whitebeard's boat, but later, it seemed that he found that Whitebeard, who was satisfied with having his own family, was still on the Roger, who was looking for real answers, was more like the one he was waiting for, and that's why he got on Roger's boat. He was looking forward to Roger being able to fulfill what their family had been waiting for hundreds of years. However, it seems that the result is a pity. The Kazuki family is not an ordinary noble family of warriors. Speaking of which, the true face of this family is still a family of craftsmen who will be looked down upon. This family is a family of masons. Long ago, this family has been regarded as the most outstanding family in the world. Masons exist. Although they are not very famous, they actually have extremely amazing works. As early as 800 years ago, the history of those 100 years has not been, or will be erased by the government. At that time, for unknown reasons, this family engraved these histories on stones, many, many huge stones. These stones are indestructible, only the masons of the Kazuki family can process them, and there are words that no one can understand. Send these huge stones all over the world. These stones, now known as the historical text. The Kazuki family, the recorders of history. As I said before, in today's world, there are only two people who can understand the text of history. One is the archaeologist of the future Straw Hat Pirates, the survivor of O'Hara, Nico Robin, and the other is Vlad's target this time, the descendant of the caster of the historical text, Kazuki Odin. Vlad got the historical text of the road sign, but he couldn't understand it. He was not a great scholar who was proficient in ancient writing. If not counting past lives, his education level is limited to the level of reading and writing without hindrance. Therefore, if he wants to understand the real information in the historical text, he must find someone to translate it for him, or in other words, find someone to teach him this kind of language. There are only two candidates left. Vlad feels that the man Kazuki Odin may be more reliable than Nico Robin. After all, the woman who has been closed by darkness in her heart is not a good character. Rad thinks he doesn't have superhuman appeal like Monkey D. Luffy. It's not easy to impress that woman, but don't forget, now Vlad's identity is Shichibukai, nominally a subordinate of the world government that destroyed O'Hara. However, Kazuki Odin is different. Although he gave birth to a very outrageous brat, since this man can board the ship of One Piece, King of Pirates, then his spirit, character and belief must be first class. 1. Vlad would rather interact with a man like Nico Robin than with a woman with severe psychological trauma like Nico Robin. Vlad floats in the sky, and below him is a continuous building community, which is in sharp contrast with the surrounding low buildings. This is the mansion of Kuri Daimyo, Kazuki Odin, which is the highest place in this territory. Built on a hill, even at night, the faint lights are still flickering, and the warriors with swords did not relax their vigilance for a moment, and dutifully patrolled the building. That's what Vlad's observation hockey feeds back to him. Hey! Vlad closed his eyes. Observation hockey was working at full force, but in an instant, a 3D panorama had been constructed in his mind. I see, this is the biggest, most luxurious place. Vlad opened his eyes. There are two people inside, one big and one small. It should be here, right? Ah. Vlad fell from the sky like red lightning, and easily avoided the warriors guarding various places. After all, for these warriors who hardly communicated with the outside world, the enemy who fell from the sky might think about it. Never thought about. Vlad landed gently on the ground. The place he was in was a small yard with a small pond and a few cherry trees around it. Now is the season when the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, even if it is late at night, but the cherry blossoms falling in the wind also made Vlad feel an astonishing beauty. Guest. This sound came from inside. What are you doing? Chapter 305 The One Who Waits. Guest, what are you doing? Vlad just fell to the ground when such a voice came from inside the room, a gentle man's voice, a low and mellow man's voice full of magnetism. Vlad was not too surprised. After all, he was also a man who had been on Roger's boat. Although he had never met, and I don't know if he was too powerful, it was not a big deal to find him. After all, Kazuki Odin is also a man who can hear the voice of the elephant, especially Vlad didn't hide his arrival very much. Oh, it was discovered. Vlad said this, with a very pity in his tone. I thought I was hiding well. Really, what a failure. Vlad laughed, showing no nervousness at all. I want to dive in perfectly. Stop joking, guest. Facing the courtyard, on the other side of the wooden corridor, the paper door was gently opened, and the man walked out with a smile on his face, as if he was a little happy. He was a very handsome man, in his 40s or 50s. He wore the same bun as the samurai that Vlad had killed before. The hair on his head was shaved. He was wearing a kimono. Well, it should be a yukata. Very angry, even at night, but Vlad can see through the faint lights in the corridor. This man is wearing a pink kimono with a cherry blossom-like pattern on it. What is even more remarkable is that his chest is completely open, revealing a strong chest with chest hair, no pants on his lower body, and his hairy calves are exposed under the not too long hem. There is a special sense of wretchedness. But his face had the same expression as the wind in the clouds, the very handsome face with Vivi's smile, and the look in his eyes was very gentle, not at all because of Vlad's uninvited arrival late at night. Feeling angry, I don't know if it's a big heart or a confidence that Vlad can't turn any waves in his hands. However, there is no doubt that such a face weakens the wretched feeling brought by his shape, and makes this man look a little unruly. The words of a guy like Kizaru are real vulgarity, and this is the truth of the world. Please be quiet, guest, the child has just fallen asleep. The man smiled and closed the door, and Vivi turned his head to indicate, and aren't you completely hidden? The man said, such a powerful aura descended from the sky undisguised, isn't this clearly telling me that you are here to find me? Hey hey hey. Vlad smiled, that's right, you're Kazuki Odin, right? Vlad's tone was quite certain, and there was no suspicion at all. Oh. The man said in surprise, how did the guest confirm it? It's simple, it's really simple. Vlad said with a smile, grinning wide open, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. Who else can be a man like you in this country except Kazuki Odin? Yes, this man will never be the second person except Kazuki Odin. In an extremely exclusive and conservative country like Wano-kuni, when he sees a sudden intruder like Vlad, and he is dressed differently from the local residents, it is clear that it is an intruder from a foreign country. When encountering such a situation, he can still chat with Vlad calmly. It is really hard for Vlad to imagine that in this country, in addition to Kazuki Odin, the one-piece king of pirates, who else has the courage to partner? Oh, that's it. Kazuki Odin rubbed his right hand on his chin, and then smiled proudly. Guests are quite talkative. Indeed, there are not many people in this country who can treat outsiders calmly. This country. This man, or rather, Kazuki Odin's tone was somewhat trance-like. It's really weird. Isn't it? It's weird, isn't it? Vlad nodded in agreement. I also think this country is quite strange. It has been completely separated from this magnificent sea. Vlad said thoughtfully, I turned a blind eye to the intensifying storm. Even if it was submerged in the waves of the sea that day, I didn't find it strange at all. Vlad thinks so. Such a reluctant country, in the face of the great waves of the times that will soon sweep in, there is really no better outcome than destruction, and it turns out that Vlad's inference is also correct. In the near future, Kaido of the Beasts will be eyeing this country, and that monster will give this country a good experience of what kind of power the heroes of the sea have. I think so too. Kazuki Odin sat cross-legged in the corridor, with his hands on the floor, and looked up at the moon that had emerged from the dark clouds, with a sigh in his voice. This country is like a samurai. It has grown old, but I still think I'm as strong as when I was young, and I think that the enemies around me who are already stronger are still the same as the past. That's how this country is. Oh. Vlad looked very interested, walked over to Kazuki Odin and sat down on his own, and said, do you know it very well? Why, haven't you thought about changing this country? Change? If I had such thoughts. The man looked at the cherry blossom trees in the courtyard and said with a sigh, you won't be able to see me today. Woo ha 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 ha. Vlad looked very happy and laughed. Hey, are you so cowardly? Shouldn't a man sacrifice his life for his dreams? Ha, wrong, guest. Kazuki Odin said, this is not my dream. Oh. Vlad smiled. I'd love to hear about it. My dream. Kazuki Odin looked up at the stars in the sky, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. I'm just waiting for someone. It's been a long, long time, and I'm getting impatient. Really? Vlad didn't look surprised. He already knew such a thing. Yes. Kazuki Odin looked at Vlad fixedly. Then, Guest, what are you here for? The man said so. Oh, this. Vlad had no intention of concealing anything, and said casually, I'm here to learn from you. Study. Kazuki Odin looked a little confused. Yes. Vlad said casually, I can't understand the ancient characters in the text of history. Sure enough, culture is very important. Quote. Kazuki Odin's pupils shrank suddenly, and then a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Really? Chapter 306 Undercurrent. Come, Mr. Vlad, tell me what the word means. Under the tree with the dancing cherry blossoms, the man standing next to a small blackboard held a small stick in his hand and pointed at a strange-shaped character on the blackboard. Can't beat me. Vlad sat cross-legged on the ground, with his hands around his chest, looking a little lazily. The falling cherry blossoms scattered all over him, but he didn't care at all. Instead, he felt that there was a strange feeling. In the season of cherry blossoms, learning the secrets of the world have a wonderful sense of beauty. The word means big ship. Vlad spoke confidently. Vlad came to Kazuki's house. That night 2 weeks ago, he asked Kazuki Odin to learn from him the ancient writings carved on the historical text, which made Vlad very strange, that the man agreed to his request without any hesitation. He didn't ask why Vlad knew that he knew this kind of language, and he didn't care about Vlad's identity. He easily agreed to Vlad's request. Just like Kazuki Odin didn't care, Vlad was a little surprised at the beginning. He didn't care anymore why Kazuki Odin would directly agree to his request. Since people have agreed to his request, all he has to do is study hard. What more can I say? Is it still hypocritical to think that this guy has some shameful conspiracy, and then hesitate to choose a long-term plan? Vlad is not such a person. His courage is not small. Has been 2 weeks since he studied with Kazuki Odin. Vlad also has a preliminary understanding of this ancient language. At the very least, he has learned a lot of vocabulary. No matter which language it is, the initial accumulation of vocabulary is not enough. Is the most basic. Vlad still understands this. Yes, the word means big ship. Kazuki Odin nodded with some satisfaction. Unlike the general word referring to a ship, this word specifically refers to a big ship. This point, Mr. Vlad, please be sure to remember it clearly. Understood. Vlad had the feeling of being in high school in his previous life, when it was the peak of his life's intelligence. Sir Father. Some immature voices sounded, and the kid in a small kimono ran over from one side, and jumped towards Kazuki Odin happily. Oh, Momonosuke. Kazuki Odin happily lifted his son and circled in the air. Kazuki Momonosuke, now 5 years old, the son of Kazuki Odin, the head of the Kazuki family, will be the daimyo heir of Kuri later, just like his father, a little boy with a samurai bun, a very horny kid. Of course, it was okay to have One Piece, King of Pirates in the previous life, but with the slogan that Momonosuke must die, Vlad said that it doesn't matter. It would be too perverted to deliberately target a 5-year-old kid no matter what. Did you have a good time today? Kazuki Odin didn't have the usual appearance of a gentle teacher at all, and asked like a fool, that the old man will indeed spoil him. Hey. Obviously only a 5-year-old kid, but this kid named Momonosuke did show a very strange smile, and his tender face was full of wretchedness that did not belong to his age. Have fun with big sister. The little devil said so. Hey. Kazuki Odin, who had a very similar smile to his own son, said, Is that so? Did you play with your eldest sister the way your father taught you yesterday? By the way, Momonosuke is not born with a lecherous character, so family education is really important, and parents' words and deeds are really important to their children. Vlad was already taken aback. Vlad was studying the ancient script in Kuri and watched how Kazuki Odin was teaching his son to be a little bitch step by step, not too long ago, in another place in Wano-kuni. In some dimly lit rooms, 2 men are talking. Just like the law, all the villains plan their conspiracy in a dimly lit room, which is really amazing. You mean? The man sitting cross-legged behind the table had a very low voice, and in the darkness, he could vaguely see his unusually majestic figure and the long knife he held in his hand. There's an outsider from that guy at Kazuki Odin. Yes, Lord General. Kneeling in front of him was a black man with a black turban, black clothes, and a black face scarf, which tightly wrapped his whole body. The portrait of the outsider is here. The man who looked like a ninja took out a piece of paper from his arms and put it on the table. This is the man hidden in the darkness, that is, the highest authority in this country, Wano-kuni, the man known as the General. His eyes widened suddenly, he picked up the portrait on the table in surprise, and immediately took it from the cabinet beside him. Pass a stack of thick paper and flip through it. Sure enough, it's this man. The General's hand flipping the paper stopped, and in front of him was a wanted order, which would never have appeared in this closed country. A bounty of 750 million. The General clenched the thick stack of paper in his hand, and his tone was cold. Have you become the great pirate of King Shichibukai, the fire dragon Vlad? What a tricky guy to show up next to that guy Kazuki Odin. Don't tell me. A guess flashed in the General's mind. Is that guy Kazuki Odin trying to use the power of the outsider? Damn, is it for me? General frowned. Do you want to attack me first when I'm not ready to attack? Sure enough, my choice is not wrong. That guy Kazuki Odin. No, it should be said that those rebellious guys are in my position always covetous. The General's life is not as happy as he imagined. Although he is nominally the supreme ruler of the country, he has actually said it before. There are not many daimyos in this country who are in charge of their own affairs. They have actually divided up the country, and there is not much left for the supreme ruler general. So he wants to change this state, especially to kill Kazuki Odin, who has a detached reputation among the samurai of the whole country. Since the other party already has the idea of doing it, then of course I can't sit still. Of course, I can't do it on my own, so. The man said, quick, pass the news to that monster. War, advance. Chapter 307 Confessions of a Non-Mainstream Swordsman. Our country was called the country of samurai, and that was a long time ago. I'm sorry, the words are mixed. Our country is called Wano-kuni. It is a very old country. It is really very old, although it is a bit bad to say this is a national of this country. But I still think that this country is really it's already decayed, and time has passed I don't know how many years, but the people here are no different from the ancestors hundreds of years ago, and there is no change. X23 US. Com updates fastest. My family is a samurai family. Like most samurai families, my family has been a family of swordsmanship since a long time ago. Although the secret swordsmanship is not very powerful, it is enough to keep our family above the commoners. Above. Originally, the trajectory of my life should have been like my elders, my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, learning the swordsmanship handed down from the family, and then inheriting the family business and becoming the new samurai master. If I can go further, maybe I can become a retainer of a certain daimyo, officially making my family the upper echelon of this country. It was supposed to be like this, but it didn't. Although it sounds a bit arrogant, my talent in swordsmanship is really good. The swordsmanship inherited from my family has been mastered when I was a few years old. In terms of swordsmanship alone, even my father is no longer my opponent. Since then, my life has changed. My father thought that if I stayed at home, it would only delay my future. He thought that I would take my family to a height that no one had ever thought of before, so he sent me to another place to learn swordsmanship. It's not about those schools of swordsmanship. Their swordsmanship is not necessarily strong. The place my father sent me to is Kuri, where the Kazuki family ruled. The daimyo here is also one of the most famous samurai in this country, Kazuki Odin. The adults didn't care about my father's arrogance, accepted me to a great extent, and made me his disciple. Since that day, I have been learning swordsmanship with Odin teacher. 17 years have passed in a flash. I am 25 years old this year, and I have stayed in Kuri. I only left when my parents died. 17 years have passed, and I have learned Master Odin's swordsmanship for a long time, but the teacher has never admitted that I have the qualifications to be a teacher. If it is in those swordsmanship schools, then my current situation is that I have already been exempted. All the qualifications, but the teacher has not given me the certificate. But it doesn't matter, or it's better this way. If I really want to leave Curry, I don't know where to go. I only know swordsmanship, and I'm only interested in swordsmanship, and I don't know what to do after leaving the apprenticeship. It might be good if it goes on like this. I've been watching a person for the last few days, an outsider who has suddenly appeared, no doubt from abroad, and has become accustomed to dressing very differently from Wanokuni. The man's name is Ferdinando Vlad. It's a very strange name. Is this the name of all people overseas? The man named Vlad seems to have come to learn a language from Mr. Odin. I never knew that the teacher could speak such a language. Maybe the teacher was studying overseas. The teacher had left Wanokuni in the past. You know, before taking over as Curry's daimyo, the teacher had been out on the sea for several years. I was curious about the teacher's experience, but the teacher was reluctant to tell me about his overseas experience. Every time he refused my request with a smile, I couldn't understand it. To be honest, even I am a little curious about the overseas world. Will there be stronger swordsmen overseas? I'm a little curious. So I've been watching this man named Vlad the past few days, this man with a very different smell. Ah, fake samurai. Just as I huddled behind the pillar to watch the teacher teach the man a lesson to see if I could hear their overseas exchanges, such a voice came from behind me. I turned my head around, and sure enough it was this lecherous kid, the kid named Momonosuke, the teacher's son, and my junior brother, a very lecherous kid. There's a reason this kid calls me a fake samurai. I hate the hairstyle that samurai shaves. Don't you think the top of your head is cool? Just plain stupid. Okay. Also said that this is the symbol of the samurai. What the hell is there? Would that great samurai still wear a helmet when fighting? So I didn't keep my hair in a bun. I was very satisfied with my long black hair. So this kid who was only 5 years old but was as conservative as an old man, so he always disliked me and kept calling me a fake samurai. Hey, you rascal. I answered so. Hee hee, little devil. Don't think that you ran into the women's bathhouse last night to blatantly peek because of your age. I didn't see it. That wretched look is really annoying, but those cute little sisters didn't find this little devil. The true face of the head, how can you get it when you grow up after being so lustful at a young age? What did you bastard say? This kid blushed, and no one dared to talk to him except me. After all, although this kid was a lecherous kid, he was also the real heir to Curry's daimyo. You still have the face to talk about me. I saw you last night too. Said the little devil with a smug look on his face. What a shame, my nose is bleeding all the time. Can this be considered a samurai? Che, have you been seen? What's wrong? As a 25-year-old unmarried man, what happened to me when I went to peep at the women's bathhouse? Is there anything strange? It's not a shameful thing, is it? What's wrong with samurai peeping at women's bathhouses? And, kid, what's up with the nosebleed? I just got angry recently, and it has nothing to do with the things in the women's bathhouse. Don't think too much about me, I am an upright warrior. Oh Tilda, it's you. The lecherous Mr. Samurai. Hey, who are you calling a lecherous samurai? You bastard, be careful I cut you. I turned my head in annoyance, and then saw the guy standing in front of me with a lazy smile on his face, that is, Ferdinand Vlad. I didn't speak. Although my inner activities were very rich, I was actually a taciturn person. After all, some words were very bad. I still understand this. How is it, Mr. Samurai? The man said, how did you consider my suggestion last time? The last suggestion he said was a few days ago when this man suddenly said he wanted me to get on his boat and go out to sea with him. To be honest, I was a little hesitant. Wanokuni is really a very boring and annoying place. I am very impatient to stay, but the teacher has not allowed me to teach, so I am not qualified to leave. So, Here is my answer. Sorry. I turned around and left, feeling a little melancholy, and decided to go to the women's bath again tonight. Oh yes, haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Sakata XX, a samurai who is currently a little confused. Chapter 308 Impending. Vlad looked at the back of the man walking away with a smile on his face. He was a very interesting man. He was different from anyone Vlad had ever seen in this country, although his identity was a samurai, but without the slightest stubbornness or arrogance that a samurai should have. Although his face is always cold, Vlad can see that there is a flame in this guy's heart, although it has not been completely surging, although he has not realized it yet, but, in fact, Vlad it can be seen that this guy is yearning for a different life from now, yearning for a vigorous. So Vlad was very interested in him. He hoped that this guy could get on his boat, especially this man's swordsmanship has completely got Kazuki Odin's true biography. Vlad specifically asked Kazuki Odin, this guy called Sakata is in terms of swordsmanship he is no longer under his teacher. Although he has not yet been granted the qualification to be a teacher, even Kazuki Odin admits that this man has absolutely no need to continue to study with him. Vlad's ship just lacks a swordsman, although it is not a necessary position, but if not, I always feel that the force is a lot lower than other pirate groups. Everyone has swordsmen. The Fire Dragon pirates didn't. I felt ashamed. Now that he has found a suitable target, Vlad certainly won't just miss it. He won't miss any opportunity to enhance his strength. There are too many enemies in his future. Always good. Oops, what a pity, it was rejected again. Vlad scratched his head in annoyance and sighed. Looks like it's not time yet. Such a smile, Kazuki Odin said, that kid Sakata doesn't seem to be ready to go to sea yet. Don't you care? Vlad said, don't you mind that I'm taking your favorite disciple away? Ha 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 ha, stop joking, Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Odin laughed and looked very happy. Isn't the reason quite simple? What reason is there to stop a man who has made up his mind going to sea? Who? Vlad grinned. But unfortunately, Kazuki Odin sighed, that kid, he hasn't made up his mind yet. It's not easy to pull him out to sea now. Well, Mr. Vlad, the break is over, now let's continue our studies. Kazuki Odin smiled, and this smile made Vlad feel like the head teacher with glasses in high school in his previous life. Let the horses come. Vlad replied. Dash 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 dash. At the same time, on the sea far away from Wano-kuni, a large fleet was sailing fast on the sea. Really, can't the speed be faster? On a large boat in the center, an extremely tall man said with an angry tone, when will this speed be able to reach Wano-kuni? This. Standing behind the man was a relatively thin, but also extremely strong man with a shy smile. Sir Jin, this is the limit of our ship, and this speed is already very fast. In addition to Marine's new warships, we is no longer any slower than anyone's. But, the man named Jin turned his head sharply, his eyes were bloodshot, and vigorous anger was brewing in it. When we arrive at Wano-kuni at such a speed, the battle will be over long ago. The boss has settled all the battles alone, so what's the use of us? This. The younger brother looked a little embarrassed. This, Lord Jin, hasn't it always been like this? What? Jin frowned. What did you say? The younger brother replied with some fear. Master Kaido always likes to fight alone. As long as there is a battle with Lord Kaido involved, don't we always follow behind to clean up the mess? Bang! The man named Jin clenched his fist with his right hand, his eyes were extremely cold, and with a flick of his hand, the huge fist slammed directly on the chest of the younger brother, and the majestic force directly blasted the younger brother into the air, landing far on the sea. Asshole, I know this kind of thing, so I want to rush over. I'm here to fight. Not to clean up the battlefield. The man turned his head sharply, his head looked up at the sky, and roared like this. Boss Kaido, quote. Let's leave some enemies for us this time. The large fleet sailed far into the wind. The conspicuous skull marks were printed on the sails, with 2 large horns and 3 crossed bones on the back. This emblem is known to everyone in the New World. Mark. Because this mark represents nothing else but one of the 4 emperors who dominate the New World, the mark of Kaido of the Beasts. This fleet is the main fleet of the 4 emperor pirates, the Beast Pirates. The man's name is Jin, which is the big signboard of the Beast Pirates and one of the 3 disasters. The real thing, the powerhouse of the Megatron world. Dash 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 dash. At the same time, Wano Kuni is a place offshore. Although Wano Kuni is a closed country, it also has the occupation of fishermen. If the closed island country does not trade with foreign countries, the living materials are actually quite poor. Going to the sea to fish is the choice of many people living by the sea. After all, the sea is also tolerant, and will give materials to those who depend on her for life. The same is true today. The fishermen are still fishing near the sea. These fishermen are not very demanding. As long as they can live well, they are very satisfied. They have never dreamed of becoming a samurai or a ruling class, let alone something like that. Saying that they have been roaming the sea, they will be very satisfied as long as they can catch enough fish today and be able to eat their stomachs. Near the coast, a few small windsurfing boats were floating, and a few fishermen were standing on the boat with fishing nets in their hands, ready to go. It was at this time. "Hey, what's that?" suddenly someone exclaimed. On the distant sea level, something chopped the waves and rushed towards this side at a terrifying speed. "Is it the waves?" Someone was amazed. "No, that is, yes, tsunami." Someone shouted in horror. A white line is getting closer and closer from the distant sky. Talent discovered that this is already a big wave that seems to be able to sweep the world. Hooah! It was like a gust of wind swept through the grasslands, and everything on the sea was destroyed by the waves. Boom! The waves crashed heavily on Wano Kuni's coastline. Unexpectedly, the apparently fluid waves crashed into a big crater on the coast, and they continued to spread inside. "Hey! It's here!" The huge figure stood up from the pit and roared like this, and the violent wind swept the 4 fields in an instant. Damn, the war, start now. Chapter 309. Suddenly. A thick cloud has shrouded the country, but at this time, Vlad did not know this SWW. Then, Mr. Vlad. It was also under the cherry blossom tree, but this time Kazuki Odin was also sitting on the ground. The small blackboard was hanging on the tree, and a paragraph of text had been written on it. Of course, it was also written in ancient texts. The teaching between the two continued. Vlad looked a little embarrassed, his eyes narrowed with Vivi's eyes, and he looked at the small blackboard. He knew most of the words on it, but he couldn't understand the meaning of the combination. This kind of ancient the grammar of the text is completely different from the language currently used in the sea. It is obviously a familiar character, but it is not easy to understand when combined. If you translate it literally, you can only get the result of nonsense. "I don't know." Vlad shook his head honestly and said so. "Really?" Kazuki Odin nodded knowingly. "Really. It seems that I was a little too hasty. It seems that we need to continue to strengthen learning in this area." Mr. Vlad. Understood. Vlad didn't mean to be disappointed. After all, it's only been more than 2 weeks since the beginning of learning. It is already very powerful to be able to remember a lot of words. In terms of learning, I want to do it overnight. It is purely wishful thinking, which has something in common with the improvement of strength. All need to lay a solid foundation in order to build on this foundation and make rapid progress. Well, that's it for today's teaching. Kazuki Odin smiled, put away the small blackboard, and smiled. Then now, let's enjoy the wonderful cherry blossoms under this cherry tree. Sakata. Kazuki Odin shouted so softly. "Okay, teacher." Answering this, the man named Sakata walked over to Vlad and Kazuki Odin with 2 tables in each hand, and placed the 2 tables in front of the 2 men. Vlad moved his nose, and the sweet smell made him suddenly feel happy. There were several plates of desserts on the table. They were not cakes, but balls. They seemed to be the most popular sweets in Wano-kuni. After getting along for so long, Kazuki Oden knew Vlad better. Then there is a bottle of wine, which should be called sake, and a small plate, which should be used for drinking. Please, Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Oden's side is also the same configuration. He poured himself a glass of wine first, and drank it. Ah, that's nice. The man exclaimed. Really? Vlad poured himself a glass clumsily. He had always blown on the bottle before drinking, and it was the first time to drink like this. Suck it. Taking a sip, Vlad raised the corner of his mouth. Not bad. Right. Kazuki Oden looked very happy. This wine is not bad. Of course it is, too. As if talking to himself, without waiting for Vlad to answer, the man fell into memory. After a long time, he finally said, Captain Roger and Mr. Newgate said the same. ... Vlad raised his head and looked straight at Kazuki Oden. This man seemed to have said something incredible. I really miss it. It's all over 20 years ago. Curry's famous name said, those 2 are drinking where we are sitting now. I really miss it. That period of sailing at will. Hey, you said something amazing. Vlad smiled and poured himself another glass of wine. Really? Is such a big secret just told like that? Mr. Sakata, who was standing on the side, suddenly narrowed his eyes, with a very interested look in his eyes. He was very interested in Kazuki Oden's adventure at sea back then. No problem, as soon as I saw you, I knew that Mr. Vlad was someone you could trust. Kazuki Oden took another sip of his drink and said with a smile, besides, didn't you already know? Ah. Vlad laughed and stuffed a bunch of balls into his mouth. It always felt good to be trusted. Did you know this a long time ago? Who knows about this? What a slick, Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Oden didn't care at all, poured himself another glass of wine, and raised the glass to Vlad in the distance. Cheers. Vlad also brought a glass to himself, and also lifted the glass to Kazuki Oden from a distance, smiling, to this era. Kazuki Oden froze for a moment, then replied with a smile, respect this era. The 2 drank at the same time. This era is the era of the great pirates, created by One Piece, King of Pirates and his friends. Kazuki Oden, partner of One Piece, King of Pirates. Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Oden suddenly said, do you want to be One Piece, King of Pirates? Yeah, One Piece, King of Pirates, it's my dream. Vlad said, I want to be the freest man in the world, and One Piece, King of Pirates, that's who. The freest person. Ha 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 ha. Kazuki Oden laughed, this is not an easy thing. There are as many guys in the world who want to limit people's freedom. Yeah, these guys are very annoying. They insist on letting others live by their own rules. Vlad said, so for my freedom, I can only kill all the guys who want to stop me. ... Kazuki Oden Vivi was stunned for a moment, and then the sighs, ha 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 ha. Kazuki Oden smiled like this. Behind him, Sakata looked at Vlad with excitement. There was only one difference from the expression when he saw the naked body of that super punctual beauty in the bathhouse last night, that is, there was no nosebleed. You'll make it, Mr. Vlad. Laughing for a long time, Kazuki Oden stopped and smiled, you will definitely succeed. The world will be changed because of you. Of course it is. With a bunch of dumplings in his mouth, Vlad said as a matter of course. Yes. Kazuki Oden agreed, of course. Some people, even just watching his first face, will know that this guy is absolutely an amazing man, and will know that the world will change because of him. Kazuki Oden agrees with this. When he first met Vlad, it was like the first time he met Roger. It was at this time that a sudden change occurred. What? Vlad frowned sharply. Boom. 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 A continuous roar came from a distance, and it was rapidly approaching. Chapter 310 Kaido of the Beasts. Violent tremors like earthquakes came from far away. The courtyard where Vlad was shaking kept shaking. On the cherry blossom tree, the cherry blossoms fell from the tree like rain, and his legs crossed. In the pool next to the sitting place, the ripples spread in circles and circles. It is obviously a small pool, but it is indeed like a small ocean with waves SSS. Point 1a. What's the matter? Kazuki Odin frowned and said, is there an earthquake? I'm afraid not. Vlad stood up and said, this kind of momentum doesn't look like an earthquake. What? Kazuki Odin frowned, a little puzzled, what do you mean? I mean it is. Hey. Vlad's figure jumped up sharply, the fiery red dragon scales instantly covered his body, the wide wings stretched out, and the two sharp dragon horns seemed to be breaking through the sky. Earthquake wouldn't throw something like this over. Vlad's hands gathered flames, and a fireball the size of his head appeared in his hands, emitting amazing light and heat. At the first moment of the strong vibration, his observation Haki had noticed that something was flying over, and it was something very extraordinary. Woo! With a strong wind, a huge shadow instantly enveloped this not-so-big courtyard. Hey, that's too exaggerated. Even a man as well-informed as Kazuki Odin looked a little stunned now. What the hell is this? What was even more shocking was the fact that he had not seen much of the world and had been staying in the lecherous samurai Sakata who had never been out in Curry. This man was already stunned. The sudden change made this man a little bit stunned. It is a hill smashed directly towards this place. It was an astonishing sight. It was like the end of the world when a comet hit the ground. A huge hill suddenly appeared in the air and smashed directly towards this courtyard. Although the size is not so amazing, it belongs to the kind of hill that you don't care much about even if you walk up, but stepping on the soles of your feet and smashing them from the sky are obviously two completely different experiences. The former almost makes people don't feel it, but the latter only makes people desperate. However, Vlad will not despair. Whoosh! Vlad waved his right hand lightly, and the hot and shining fireball flew out at a speed that was difficult to observe with the naked eye, and slammed straight towards the flying hill. Boom! The shining light enveloped everything, the violent wind swept the sky, and the unbridled heat scorched the earth. The huge fireball exploded into the sky in just a moment, swallowing the huge hill in the blink of an eye. The terrifying explosion coupled with the strong high temperature made this hill that could easily destroy the courtyard difficult to resist. Disintegration and then to ashes is its only option. It's amazing. With a cold face, Sakata, who has never spoken much, suddenly said this. Indeed, it's amazing. Kazuki Odin exclaimed, what an incredible power. Ah, what a terrifying power. Vlad agreed, to be able to pull up such a hill from the ground and throw it directly into such a distant place. This kind of power can be said to be appalling, and it must be a terrifying guy. Prepare for battle. Mr. Kazuki, it seems absolutely impossible to spend peacefully today. The guy who is coming this way is really a monster. Vlad has already seen through his observation Haki that a guy is rushing towards this side. The hill just now was just a little greeting for his side, and the real battle is about to begin. Maybe today, we will all die here. Oh, it's true. Kazuki Odin stood up with a lonely expression on his face. Do you want to fight again? Fighting has never been my favorite thing. And it's still such a difficult fight. However, having said that, Mr. Vlad, this is the first time I've seen you in this attitude. Kazuki Odin looked Vlad up and down and said, what a power of beauty. It's okay. Vlad smiled. No one does not like to hear others praise themselves, and Vlad is no exception. Well, then, let's stop talking nonsense. Kazuki Odin stood up, turned his head and looked at Sakata who was standing by the side unmoved and said, Sakata, I give you a task. Yes. Sakata looked very serious, bowed his head, and looked very respectful. Go, leave Curry with Momonosuke. Kazuki Odin said, now that the battle has begun, you have to prepare for the worst. Sakamoto, Please, leave with Momonosuke, and inform Raizo and Kinemon by the way to let them evacuate the residence. The next battle is not something that can be easily avoided. Run as far as you want. The battlefield, it might be the entire Curry. Quote. Quote. Yes. Sakamoto was silent for a moment, then replied softly, then his feet slammed hard, the ground shattered instantly, and the man disappeared. This child. Kazuki Oden looked at the ground that was smashed by Sakamoto, and said, my heart is messed up. Although it is not as Kazuki Oden wished, there is no doubt that this disciple of his listens to his words very much. Wait a minute, Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Oden bowed towards Vlad Vivi and walked slowly towards the house beside him. Vlad didn't care either. His attention was already focused on the monster that was getting closer and closer, and everything that stood in front of him would be directly blasted away. Hey, how did you meet in such a place? Vlad said angrily, isn't this guy coming here in a few years? It's been so long, Mr. Vlad. Chingyu's voice sounded, and the man had appeared in the courtyard again, wearing a black navy blue kimono. This time it was very neat, with a scabbard longsword in his hand. Kazuki Oden's face with Vivi's smile. Nothing, I don't have time to think about it now. Vlad replied. Haha, take this one. Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Oden smiled and handed Vlad a small notebook. It was originally prepared for your daily memory, but now it seems to come in handy. Vlad took the small book and stuffed it into his trouser pocket. How pessimistic, Mr. Kazuki. There is no way. Kazuki Oden smiled like this. After all, it was the one who came. Boom. The walls of the courtyard shattered violently, and a huge figure appeared in front of the two. War, start. The name of the visitor is Kaido of the Beasts. Chapter 311 The Beginning of the War. The stature is extremely tall, and it is estimated that it can be 7 or 8 meters. It is absolutely difficult for normal people to reach such a height, and it is even close to the height of the giants. The upper body is naked and the muscles are stretched. Just at a glance, you can easily find the terrifying explosive power and amazing resistance to fighting. There is a huge scar on the right abdomen, and there is a scale-like tattoo on the left arm. He wore bracelets on both wrists, a tie around his waist, and a purple feather cloak draped over his back. The black hair is scattered, the 2 huge horns are extended, the 2 beards are very long, spreading like 2 belts, the rough face is full of fierce fighting intent, and the eyes are full of tyranny. The name of the visitor is Kaido, Kaido of the Beasts, the guy who is known as the strongest creature in the world, a monster with an immortal body, one of the 4 emperors who dominate the New World, and Vlad doesn't want to face it no matter what. Monster. Oh. Kaido let out a slow sigh of relief, and even though he only let out a small breath, there was a breeze blowing in the courtyard. That's it, isn't it? Asshole. Kaido of the Beasts, one of the 4 emperors. Facing one of the 4 emperors, Kaido of the Beasts, Vlad still had no sign of stage fright. Why did you come to such a place? Huh. Kaido tilted Vivi's head and stared at Vlad. Even if it is only watched by the eyes, it is a creepy feeling, just like an ordinary person being watched by a terrifying beast. This is horror from the heart. However, Vlad was unmoved. That is to say, I have to explain where I am going, right? Boom. The earth-shattering movement was like being bombarded by a meteorite. The whole courtyard was like being plowed over and turned over in an instant. The whole world was shaking. Hey, is your temper so explosive? Vlad flapped his wings and hovered in the air. Isn't there any chance of communication? This is one of the 4 emperors, Kaido of the Beasts. Like a dragonfly, Kazuki Oden stood gently on a crooked cherry tree and sighed, a real monster. Kaido angrily slammed into the ground with an angry fist. The huge fist had a power that matched its size. It blasted a big hole directly on the ground. The dense cracks began to spread to the surrounding area in an instant. Before the battle started, the surrounding environment was already destroyed. Almost destroyed. Oh, Mr. Kazuki. Vlad smiled and said to Kazuki Odin, "Your home is completely over. How do you feel about that?" Thinking. Kazuki Odin replied thoughtfully, "Although I really want him to compensate, but think about it carefully, let's save your life first." Ah ha ha ha. Vlad smiled and looked very happy. "Hey, look closely." Then, Kaido spoke, and the man actually spoke. He raised his head and looked at Vlad, who was floating in the sky. Although he was clearly looking up at Vlad, Vlad always felt the man's gaze. It is looking down with a condescending look, like a giant beast looking down at a reptile. "Isn't this the fire dragon kid? What is it called?" "Forget it." Kaido said so. "Oh, do you actually know me?" Vlad looked a little surprised. "Hey, aren't you kidding me? Does Kaido of the Beasts, one of the 4 emperors, actually know me? Should I be proud? Hey, I have been looking for you for a long time." "This man," Kaido of the Beasts said, looking at Vlad with seriousness in his eyes, "we finally meet today." "Oh, really? Kaido-sama is actually looking for me." Vlad grinned. "It's scary. Little devil, come to Lao Su's side." Kaido said this as a matter of course, and there was no sense in his tone that anything was wrong. "I need you." Are you actually recruiting me?" Vlad looked surprised. "Mr. Vlad, I'm here to solicit you." Kazuki Odin was also a little surprised, and then smiled. "Then you should promise him quickly, and then you don't have to fight, right?" "Just kidding, Mr. Kazuki." Vlad smiled. "This can't be done. I'm long past the age to recognize someone as the boss. I'm tired of playing the house or something." "Hualong, do you mean you want to reject Lao Su?" Kaido frowned when he heard Vlad's words, and a terrifying aura gradually rose from his body. "Don't get me wrong, Kaido-sama." Vlad smiled with great interest. "It's a bit too much to say refusal." "What?" Kaido couldn't help but wondered. This man who only knew rang was a little bit confused about Vlad's brain circuits. "I wouldn't even think about such a pointless question." Vlad raised a finger and smiled, "So of course it's not a rejection. Since this issue was not considered from the beginning, of course there is no concept of rejection. It's not a matter of course thing. I'll only say it once, Kaido of the Beasts." Vlad said this, with a rare serious look on his face. "No one can force me. Neither can God. My will is only under my own control. That is to say, Lao Su." Sure enough, it was rejected. Kaido's eyes changed suddenly, like a monster opening his eyes. "It's really bold." Fire dragon. There was a sudden explosion, and the gust of wind suddenly rose. It was only a loud roar, but it immediately rolled up a gust of wind on the ground. "What a terrible guy." Boom. Kaido stomped on the ground suddenly, his huge body lifted up instantly. With the sound of howling wind, this monster appeared in front of Vlad in just an instant. So fast. Flash of vigilance flashed in Vlad's eyes. Even it was difficult to capture Kaido's movements with the naked eye. It was extremely terrifying. Charlotte Linlin, who was also the 4th emperor, was far from having such speed. However, fortunately, when fighting with real masters, Vlad rarely used the naked eye to observe the opponent. After all, the eyes are easy to be deceived, but observation haki, which is equivalent to the heart's eyes, cannot. Vlad locked Kaido tightly. Then Kaido punched, his right hand clenched, the muscles on his right arm bulged high, and the fist slammed over. It felt as if the surrounding air had been drained by this blow, and Vlad suddenly felt a shortness of breath. Was this really just a fist? Vlad shouted for unknown reasons, and at the same time, his fists also slammed up. With raging flames. Chapter 312 The Way of the Samurai. Boom. The world is shaking. The wind is blowing, the flames are raging. The turbulent shock wave instantly destroyed everything around it. The Daiming mansion, where there were still many remaining buildings, was once again destroyed. The violent force blew all the debris away, like a volcano. The eruption of volcanic ash flew into the distance. Power, 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 power. Unparalleled power. Horror, far beyond human belief, came from Kaido's fist. This. Vlad's eyes widened suddenly. Whoosh. Boom. Unbelievable, after a short stalemate, Vlad was directly hit by Kaido with a punch. This is a situation that Vlad has never encountered since he got the dragon fruit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Under the action of majestic power, Vlad was directly blasted away from a distance, flipped over on the ground for a while, and then crashed into a ruin. Little devil, who do you think you are talking to? With the extremely terrifying power, he directly blasted Vlad's man. Kaido of the Beasts roared, but Kaido of the Beasts. Since you reject Lao Su, then prepare to die. Woo-hoo. Suddenly, there were tears in the man's eyes. What a pity, if the dragon fruit of mythical joins my command, wouldn't it be great? Damn. Boy, your dream of building the zone core has been shattered. You want. The ground shattered violently, and the huge body vacated again, pounced directly towards the place where Vlad fell. How do you pay me? Giaaaaaaaa. Quote. The sharp explosion sounded suddenly, with a cherry-red halo, and a huge slash seemed to fall from the sky. With the terrifying power that ripped everything straight to Kaido in the sky, it was the beautiful flying slash is extremely beautiful and extremely gorgeous. What? Kaido turned his head sharply, a huge slash close at hand. That's not good. Beasts. The toes lightly placed on a gravel, the man named Kazuki Oden stood in a somewhat comfortable posture. His back was bent, his two hands were hanging down naturally, his left hand held the scabbard, and his right hand held the hilt, letting the blade edge naturally. The drooping, there is no sign of alertness at all, it seems to be very leisurely. You can't just watch you take action on Mr. Vlad like that. Kazuki Oden said this, his eyes narrowed with Vivi's eyes, and his white kimono fluttered in the wind of hunting. The man said, as an uninvited fellow, what are you doing to other people's distinguished guests? Crackling. The cherry-red slash shattered in an instant, like a wave surging towards the reef by the sea, in vain, and could not shake the ancient rock in the slightest. However, Kazuki Oden's purpose of obstructing Kaido was indeed achieved. Boom. The terrifying monster gently landed on the ground. Kaido didn't have the slightest wound on his body. However, his face was indeed full of unhappy expressions. Of course, any creature would feel unhappy because it was stopped. Kaido is one of the best among them, because monsters don't like to restrain themselves, and they always scatter when they are angry. You are, Wano-kuni, the name of curry. Kaido said, Kazuki Oden. I know you. What? Kazuki Oden looked a little surprised. I've heard of you. Kaido said, I'm here to find you this time. Looking for me. Kazuki Oden looked a little surprised. You used to be the crew of the One Piece King of Pirates Gol D. Roger, right? Kazuki Oden's pupils shrank suddenly, and he had already guessed what Kaido meant. You also know the location of the final island, don't you? Kaido said, really, instead of looking for 4 broken rocks that I don't know where, it's better to just ask someone who knows the way. So it is. Kazuki Oden looked at Kaido with 3 more contempt for no reason. Is it for this reason? Huh. Kazuki Oden smiled softly, not speaking. So tell Lao Su everything you know. Kaido stepped forward, his tall body was like an ancient demon, full of amazing pressure. Call. Kazuki Oden let out a slow sigh of relief, waved his left hand lightly, threw the scabbard aside, then put his hand on the hilt, holding the sword with both hands. He said, this is not possible. Ah, beasts, some things can never be said. The man, the name of Wano-kuni, the partner of One Piece, King of Pirates, said, because it's a contract. Should 1 or 2 reject Lao Su? Kaido said so. From the violent meridians on his face, it can be seen that this man is quite angry. Also, don't take Lao Su seriously. Looks like you won't speak up if you don't take your bones apart one by one. Kaido raised his fist, and the terrifying momentum began to gather. Zia, quote. Just like the sea, the azure blue slash came from the sky, not weaker than the slash issued by Kazuki Odin before, or even better. One after another is over. Kaido roared loudly, and slammed his fist into the incoming slash. Jaa, quote. The sour voice sounded, and under the bombardment of Kaido monster-like power, the slash instantly shattered, turning into dots of light, glowing a dreamlike blue, extremely beautiful. Hey, big guy, what do you want to do to someone else's master? The voice of such a somewhat muffled man rang out, and a man named Sakata had already stood behind Kazuki Odin at some point. What are you doing here, boy? Without turning his head, Kazuki Odin said, didn't I tell you to run with Momonosuke? I refuse. He has always had a lot of inner drama, but it was indeed the man who was taciturn and said, if you choose to run away when a powerful enemy is attacking, that's not what a samurai should do. The little devil has already let Leizang take it away. Ha, this is the first time you have refused my order, Sakata, let's talk about it. Kazuki Odin said, didn't you always care about being a samurai? It's one thing to care or not. Sakata said softly, however, doing it is another matter. I never cared about a samurai or anything. Sakata said solemnly, however, I abide by the way of the samurai. Something in my heart is telling me, teacher, I can't follow your orders this time. Even if it's going to die. Kazuki Odin said so. I won't die. Sakata replied. Very well, since I don't want to die. Kazuki Odin clenched the knife with both hands, and said, then prepare to go all out. There. In the distance, flames soared into the sky, and the white gold fire column went straight to the sky. Don't either. Forget me. Chapter 313 Mutation New Enemy. The Kazuki family's mansion has been reduced to ruins. Before the battle officially started, the surrounding environment has been shattered first. Now the 4 people who exist on the battlefield have the power to destroy the world. Although a bit mean. Vlad shook his head, and then said, but the current situation can only be together, right? Woo. Kazuki Odin breathed a sigh of relief and nodded in agreement. That's right, Kaido of the Beasts is not an opponent that can be dealt with alone. At this time, although I really want to maintain the honor of the samurai, but if I want to come, it will not work. Quote. It doesn't matter. Sakata had a cold face. He didn't hold a sword with both hands like his teacher. In fact, he had 2 swords. He was a swordsman with 2 swords, one in each hand. The battle is about to begin. What an incredible power. Vlad pondered so silently, his right arm was sore. Kaido's punch showed him unrivaled strength, as expected of a guy known for his overwhelming wrist strength. Purely in terms of strength, even Charlotte Linlin is slightly less. You know, even when he fought Charlotte Linlin before, Vlad was able to fight her for a while, or waited until Charlotte Linlin exerted his strength again before he was repelled. However, this guy Kaido is not at all. Same, power, terrifying. Hey, beasts, do you have any comments? Vlad smiled like this, we've decided on 3-on-1 here. You have no opinion. You bastards, if you're going to fight. Come on now. Kaido had a fanatical smile on his face. Vlad's words did not irritate him, but made him even more warlike. Anyone who faced Vlad, Kazuki Odin and Sakata could see it at a glance. A siege from an opponent who isn't easy to mess with is bound to be a little dignified, but Kaido isn't one of those guys. Kaido doesn't care at all, or in other words, it has always been his hobby to fight against others, no matter if the opponent is the 4 emperors or Marine. This man is a well-deserved Lone Ranger, obviously has a powerful force, but always likes it fighting alone. It can be said that among the 4 emperors, he has the worst record. He has experienced 7 defeats, been captured 18 times, and sentenced to death 40 times. However, in such a life, a man full of failures is recognized by the world as the strongest creature in the sea, land and air. There is no doubt that the man named Kaido is the strongest and most powerful candidate in the world. Well, Vlad's head turned to one side with a surprised look on his face. That can't be done. Some gloomy men's voices came from one side. Beasts, Kazuki Odin is my prey. Oh. Vlad looked very interested. What? Kazuki Odin looked a little unbelievable when he heard the voice of the person coming. He turned his head, and then saw a black man, black tight clothes, black headscarf, black face scarf, hidden tightly. The man's body was holding a knife. Behind him were more than a dozen similarly dressed guys, all with swords on their waists, menacing and ill-mannered. It's you. Kazuki Odin looked incredulous. Why are you here? Oh. Kaido looked a little afterthought. He also turned his head to look at the group of people who suddenly appeared, and said, did the mouse hidden behind the scenes actually jump out? Beasts, I don't care about other people. The man who took the lead among the people who came said so, but only Kazuki Odin must be solved by me. What? Kaido looks very upset. As a fighter, the most unbearable thing is that someone comes to grab his opponent, right? Are you going to rob me? Grab. Didn't care about Kaido's threat at all, and replied, don't get me wrong, Beast, this is part of the cooperation, don't forget, or say. Do you want me to defect? Crackling. The earth-shattering momentum was released from Kaido's body, the surrounding land was shaking, and the small gravel even flew directly into the sky, the amazing hockey. Are you threatening Lao Su? Kaido said angrily, do you think Lao Su must need your help? It's not. Replied, I know what your purpose is, and I won't stop you, so don't stop me either. Ha 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 ha. Kaido burst out laughing, making people feel a little puzzled. What a guts. Asshole. Remember, idiot. Kaido opened his mouth and said, this is not an example. Of course. This is the answer. So come on, Kazuki Odin. Turned to look at Kazuki Odin. The only two eyes that were exposed were full of sternness. I've been looking forward to this day for too long. I was very strange just now. Even if it is Kaido of the Beasts, one of the four emperors, it would be too strange to drive straight in like this. There was anger on Kazuki Odin's face. So you're the one doing it? Your Excellency General. This hidden man is none other than the nominal supreme ruler of Wano-kuni, the general of Wano-kuni. Actually helping outsiders invade their own motherland. Kazuki Odin looked very angry. Can you be considered a samurai like this? What's the use of nonsense? General didn't care about Kazuki Odin's accusations, let alone being recognized by Kazuki Odin. Anyway, this man is dead today. As long as he is not recognized by others, Kazuki Odin, draw your sword. I've been wanting to try it for a long time. What kind of strength is you, the so-called #1 warrior in Wano-kuni? Let me see what kind of power you have, a man who has far more prestige than me in this country. You guy. Kazuki Odin's anger out. Is it for such a boring reason? Boring. Don't overthink it, Kazuki Odin. The general tilted his head and said, there is only one reason for me to do this. This country has been closed for too long. If I don't go out, this country will end sooner or later. I don't want to see such a thing happen. But it's impossible for me to do such a thing by myself. Big names like you can't allow me to do this. Although I don't want to admit it, this country really doesn't belong to me. Is the real ruler, so I have to find a foreign aid. But I love this country so much, I just want to save this country. My heart and my actions are as clear as a mirror, and everything I do is righteous. This Wano-kuni general said so. Chapter 314 Chaos. Call. Kazuki Odin let out a slow sigh of relief. He could tell that the man was serious. Dispersed power is always useless. To make this country strong, to let this country go out, and even to let this country dominate the sea. General said, I have to concentrate my strength. So you big names are really annoying. You are blocking this country's way. Kazuki Odin. So, please die. Neat. After listening to the general's words, Vlad suddenly smiled. I suddenly feel that what he said is very reasonable. Mr. Kazuki, if the country wants to be strong, a strong central will is necessary. Dispersion is destined to only represent the weak. Quote. Stop joking, Mr. Vlad. Kazuki Odin replied, if the way to make this country strong is to rely on foreign invaders to plunge the people of this country into blood and fire, I would rather this country keep sinking like this. I can't help you. Saw. As if the breeze was blowing, the figure of the general had disappeared in place in an instant, and in just a moment, he had flashed in front of Kazuki Odin. In his hand, the incomparably sharp long knife had already covered the pitch-black hockey, tearing the air, ruthlessly. The ground slashed towards Kazuki Odin. When Kazuki Odin is calm in the face of danger. Although Wano-kuni is a closed-off country, in fact, the truly powerful warriors in this country have mastered the power called haki, which is no weaker than overseas people, and even said whether they can master the sword as the criterion for judging whether it is a true samurai. Kazuki Odin is of course very good at haki, not only armament, observation haki is also not weak. Kazuki Odin raised his knife sharply, and the dark and shimmering blades slammed together. Crack! The sharp breath spread violently, and deep cuts appeared on the surrounding ground in an instant, and the two top swordsmen began to confront each other. Oh, is this the beginning? Vlad smiled, since this side has started, that is to say, I'm the only one on here. Forget it, then we can't fall behind. Cut under the fire. Vlad's right hand and palm formed a knife, the white gold flame entangled up, and then slammed down, the flame whistled out, like a long knife made of flame, and slashed straight towards Kaido. Just let me take a good look, Kaido of the beasts. Vlad laughed wildly, what kind of monster is that? Don't be too arrogant, kid. Kaido roared like this, not at all afraid of the flaming long knife that slashed directly at his head. The ground under his feet shattered instantly, his body threw out like a rocket launcher, and rushed towards Vlad in the sky. PFF'd. The ground is as easily broken as butter meets a hot knife. The flaming long knife swung by Vlad really looks like a real, incomparably sharp long knife. However, such an attack is impossible at all. Shaking Kaido's body, although there is no invincible defense like Charlotte Linlin's steel balloon, but Kaido's monster-like body is not so easy to be penetrated. Woo ha 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 ha. Vlad fluttered his wings behind his back, and his whole body flew high. Let's change a place. This place is too small. Mr. Kazuki and his enemy are fighting here, let's not cause trouble. The flames spewed out of Vlad's body. His speed reached the limit, and he flew far away in the blink of an eye. To be honest, in terms of escape, few people in the world can compete with Vlad. Germany is on a par. Damn. Kaido took big strides, ramming like a sea train. Everything that stood in his way was smashed mercilessly. Although he was running, the speed of this man was equally astonishing. It was hard to imagine this guy. It has such a huge size. Exactly. The general swung his sword heavily, and the black slash burst out of the air, hitting Kazuki Odin's blade in an instant, knocking Kazuki Odin back directly. The person who is in the way is gone, so it is convenient for us to fight. You bastard, what a lunatic. Kazuki Odin held the knife in both hands, raised it above his head, and slashed heavily. The blade actually glowed with a cherry red light, looking extremely beautiful, as if cherry blossoms were falling in an instant. Really beautiful swordsmanship. The general suddenly felt as if he was being targeted by the whole world, and there was a feeling in his heart that no matter how much he dodged, he couldn't dodge it. This is Wano-kuni's most famous samurai, Kazuki Odin's swordsmanship, beautiful, like cherry blossoms falling, but haki extremely, like the bright sun. However, the general is not an opponent that can be defeated. No one knows what kind of strength he has in Wano-kuni, a man who has always been infamous. When the swords clashed, and the two long knives slammed together heavily, making an earth-shattering explosion. Really, what is the teacher doing? Sakata thought so in his heart, but he didn't think about it. Kazuki Oden was in charge of dealing with the general, and his opponents were naturally the men in black who followed the general. Don't try to interfere in the teacher's battle. Sakata said so. Gia. Quote. A sharp explosion sounded, and the sharp blade ripped through the air, but it slashed directly in the air. Idiot, how could such an obvious trick be able to swim? If I can hurt me, I will lose. Sakata easily avoided the raid of a man in black. As Kazuki Oden himself admitted that he was qualified to inherit his swordsmanship, Sakata's haki cultivation base is also not weak. Ding! Sakata's left hand quickly lifted up, and directly flicked the long knife in the hand of the other man in black. The powerful force instantly made the man in black lose his balance, and the weak chest pain was instantly exposed. Just die like this. Idiot, daring to fight with Mr. Sakata is the worst decision you have ever made in your life. The long sword in Sakata's right hand is ready to go. Tooth protrusion. Carrying an astonishingly strong wind, shimmering with an azure blue halo, and covering the pitch-black haki, Sakata stabbed the man in black in the chest. Ding! What? Sakata's eyes narrowed suddenly. The 5 knives that appeared at the same time directly supported his long knives. Although each of them was far less powerful than Sakata, the 5 together had the power to overwhelm Sakata. These guys are not easy. Sakata clenched the handle of the sword, not an ordinary samurai. What are you doing, Kazuki Oden? General stabbed Kazuki Oden back with a sharp knife, and said angrily, what are you hesitating about? Quote. Kazuki Oden did not speak. Forget it, I don't want to know what you're thinking, but... The general suddenly whistled. What? Kazuki Oden's expression changed suddenly, and for the first time, amazing anger appeared in his eyes. This time, you can't help but fight seriously, right? The general said so. Not far from the two of them, a pillar was suddenly erected. There were several men in black guarding under the pillar. On the pillar was a little devil's head, the little devil's head named Momonosuke. Chapter 315 Beasts. Peach no Suke. Kazuki Oden clenched the handle of the knife in his hand suddenly, and the veins on the back of his white hand burst out. X23 US. Com updates fastest. It's really lucky. General smiled like this, but there was no smile in his tone. When I came over, I saw the ninja leaving with this kid. Fortunately, my intelligence system is quite perfect, otherwise, I would have missed this little devil. Blazang, what's wrong with them? Kazuki Oden asked word by word. Razang. Oh tilde. After a brief moment of doubt, the general seemed to understand, you mean that ninja. What a loyal retainer. There was a bit of regret in the general's tone. Even if it was cut in two by me, he was still able to pull my foot and let me let go of that kid's head. Well done, Kazuki Oden. You can be relieved, you're the subordinates you believed did not let you down. This makes me a little envious, even I really want a few subordinates like this, it is worth believing. Well, forget it, even if it's worth believing, I'm the kind of person who doesn't want to believe in others. Kazuki Oden lowered his head and saw a bright red palm print on the general's dark trouser legs. Is that so? Did you lose your life because of protecting Momonosuke? Kazuki Oden muttered to himself, or Raizo, Kinemon, Kanjuro dead. Just to protect Momonosuke, did all 3 of them lose their lives? And the people who followed them, so fearlessly lost their most precious lives? Yeah, Kazuki Oden. 2 samurai and 1 ninja, all of them were executed by myself, but they are all very strong guys, I'm a pity. General smiled like this, but you must be very angry. Kazuki Oden, after all, they didn't protect your son well, this is considered dereliction of duty. In my opinion, even if such a guy died 20 times not too much. Call. What on earth is life to you? General, you succeeded. Kazuki Oden said. You have succeeded. You succeeded in angering me. That's not it. Although the general was covered with a face towel, he could easily see that this man must be smiling, with an extremely wild and wanton smile, is that right? Come on, Kazuki Odin. Want to save your son? Want to avenge your subordinates? Then, come and try it. The battle that belongs to the samurai has just begun. Dash 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 dash. It's almost here. Vlad was suspended in the air. The place where he was now in the residential area far away from Curry was surrounded by a barren mountain. This place was really suitable for fighting. Boom 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 boom. The sound of continuous explosions came from a distance, and the smoke and dust rising from the sky covered everything. Wherever the smoke and dust passed, the mountain peaks collapsed, and the river stopped flowing, like a wild beast that devoured everything. Have you stopped running? With such a roar, the terrifying wind blew Vlad's hair. Little devil. It won't come close enough here, and besides. Vlad smiled, I'd love to see how strong Kaido of the beasts is. Ha 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 ha. Kaido laughed wildly, but his figure didn't stop. His sturdy right leg stomped heavily on the ground, and the ground shattered as if it had been hit by a meteorite. A huge crater has been formed in the ground. Whoosh. The huge body rose to the sky. Kaido clenched his right fist. Then use your life to take a good look. Little devil. Then. Come on. Vlad's wings slammed, and the fiery red dragon disappeared instantly. It turned into a red comet and slammed straight into Kaido with a speed about 3 times that of Kaido. Blessing. Vlad shouted. The short confrontation just now had made him realize the gap between his normal mode and Kaido's strength. He wanted to be used to being crushed by power, and he didn't enjoy the feeling of being suppressed, so he came up first. Just do your best. For emperors, he is definitely not a guy who can release water. There. The fiery red comet was instantly enveloped in white gold flames, and the amazing high temperature filled the fields in the blink of an eye. Extremely boring. Quote. Kaido growled like this. Haki instantly covered his body. Although he has a monster-like constitution, it does not mean that Kaido is a masochist. Even if the temperature is still far away, he will feel that his body will burn. 2. How sour that should be. It's all boring. The white gold figure whistled out of the white gold flame, and Vlad's voices overlapped a bit, as if two Vlad were talking at the same time. The fashion value felt very high, and there was a gem on his forehead. Things are shining, very shining. Vlad clenched his right fist. His eyes, his observation haki, were locked on Kaido, and his eyes were full of enthusiasm. To be able to play against a guy like Kaido, the world is so big, but there are not many monsters like Kaido, and there are only a handful of existences in this sea, who can fight against the world's top players like this. It's great to fight hard. You won't know until you hit it. Boom. Accompanied by the earth-shattering explosion sound, it expanded from nothing, like a huge fireball like a small sun. Vlad's Chirong mode uses flames and haki to strengthen his body, that is to say, his body is filled with explosive flames, and with just a light punch, he can blast out the same effect as a big explosion. Whoosh. Kuaa. Quote. The huge body smashed to the ground in an instant, and the surrounding land exploded directly like the surface of the water. The huge pothole was formed immediately, and the thick crack continued to spread. The result was completely reversed from the result of the two fists. Under the influence of terrifying power, Kaido was directly blown away by Vlad. Look. Vlad hovered quietly in the air, without the slightest smugness in his tone. It's still useful. PFF'd. The soil splashed all over the place, and the terrifying monster jumped out of the pit. No damage was seen at all. Although he was knocked away, in fact, the man named Kaido was not injured at all. It's so hot, kid. Kaido looked down at his fist. It looked a little red, and even though it was covered with haki, he almost burned his hand. It's okay. Vlad smiled like this. At this level, it can only be considered okay. It's a bit self-aware. Whoosh. In just a blink of an eye, Vlad's vision was shrouded in a huge black shadow, and Kaido of the beasts was within reach. Hey, some. With such a sigh, the two pairs of wings behind Vlad fluttered gently, and the violent wind swept across in an instant. Vlad's body had disappeared in front of Kaido, and Vlad's speed was terrifying. What? There was some surprise in Kaido's huge eyes. He really didn't expect this guy to have such a speed. Too slow. Dragon fist, big broken. Boom. Vlad's body appeared high in the sky, and then slammed towards Kaido. His thick right leg slammed heavily on Kaido's back, and hockey and flames were wrapped around his leg. At this time, Kaido's body had just jumped into the air. Boom. Just like the replica of Kaido knocking off Vlad just now, a terrifying explosion occurred, and Kaido's huge body kept turning over on the ground until it crashed into a hill in the distance. In great power, if you can't hit it, it doesn't make any sense. Vlad smiled like this, is that what you mean? Huaaaaaa. Quote. Gravel splashed, and Kaido's majestic body appeared in front of Vlad again. There were obvious burn marks behind Vlad who could not see it. This blow finally broke the defense, but it's a pity yes, that place is recovering at an astonishing speed, and it will soon be intact without any scars. It's fast enough. Kaido said, Fire Dragon Kid. It hurts me so much. I don't know if it's Vlad's illusion, why do you think Kaido has become thinner? Liar to whom? Isn't it totally harmless? Besides. Is this too soon? Vlad tilted his head, so what? Flame thruster. The speed is already astonishing, if you add the rapidity of the flames, what kind of speed will it get? Hey. Vlad's eyes have been closed, and he can't see anything in such a rapid situation. Fortunately, his observation hockey is strong enough to completely replace the role of your eyes. In just one breath, Vlad had already crossed a long distance and galloped to Kaido. Boom. What? A huge fist hit his face heavily. There was even a blank in Vlad's mind, and something he had never thought about suddenly happened. Whoosh. Vlad flew back at the same speed and slammed into a hill heavily. The majestic force caused the hill to collapse instantly. Ha 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 ha. Kaido withdrew his fist, with a hideous smile on his face, not surprised at all, this punch was not a fluke. It's too arrogant, little devil. This, what? Vlad lay among the rubble, terrified. This guy Kaido. Chapter 316 The so-called strongest creature. Vlad's head, who was lying in the gravel, was dizzy for a while, and Kaido's brute force fist hit his head so hard. I am afraid there are only a handful of people who can hold this punch. X23 US. Com updates fastest. People like Vlad who didn't suffer any major damage were even rarer, and even a little appalling. Vlad's Zurong is an all-round enhancement, not just the enhancement of speed and strength. Of course, the defense is also taken care of. If it is only the enhancement of shortcomings, of course Vlad does not have the guts to rely on such tricks. The one who just confronted the four emperors' admiral and determined the lower limit of strength was such a shortcoming. The fourth block of the straw hat is to inflate the whole body, bones, muscles, and skin. Through hockey, the tension of the skin is strengthened, which greatly expands the elasticity of the rubber and obtains terrifying power and defense capabilities. Vlad is more thorough than the straw hat. The flame gives explosive power. Hockey provides protection and strength. The whole body, whether it is bones, muscles, or skin, has been strengthened by him. In Zurong mode, there is no shortcoming, so it goes without saying that the defense is natural. Vlad in the normal state has an extremely amazing defense just by virtue of his dragon scales. Now that Zurong is turned on, even if hockey is not used, it is still nothing to block Kaido's punch. Seriously. Whoosh. The gravel splashed, Vlad flew into the air, looked at Kaido in the distance with gloomy eyes, and the surprise in his heart could no longer be concealed. So fast. Vlad thought to himself, how come so quickly? Kaido's straightforward and clean strike just now, so what's the situation? Kaido, who had been fooled by Vlad's speed just now, actually caught up with Vlad's speed immediately, although his own speed was still far from Vlad's level. But judging from the blow just now, this guy's reaction speed and attack speed have improved qualitatively. To put it mildly, he knocked Vlad, who couldn't react before, flying. This guy. What the hell is going on? What's the matter, arrogant brat? With a smile on Kaido's face, aren't you going to attack? You don't need your invincible speed to attack. No way, Mr. Kaido. Although Vlad's heart is very heavy, his tone is still full of lightness. My speed seems to be of no use to you. If you attack now, it will not have any good results for me. Ha 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 ha, kid, are you scared? Kaido Vivi lowered his head. I'm completely different from the same enemies you faced before. Giaaaaaaaaaa. Quote. The dust on the ground rose instantly, the ground behind Kaido shattered directly, and at the same time, his body had disappeared. So fast. Vlad sighed sincerely. Kaido's current speed is far higher than that of him just now, and in just a blink of an eye, he has already rushed in front of Vlad. PFF'd. The empty ground sank suddenly without warning, and a huge pothole appeared on the ground. Vlad suddenly felt a strong wind blowing against his face. A huge black shadow had shrouded in front of him, but in an instant, Kaido had appeared in front of him. Compared to just now, it's really a different person. Little devil. With such a roar, Kaido's fist was already smashed towards Vlad. Speed is fast enough, so what about power? Bang. Dragonization. His height has reached 5 or 6 meters, which is already extremely tall compared to ordinary people, but like the monster Warcraft, Kaido, who is meters tall, still pales in comparison. However, in terms of the size of the fist, the gap between the two is not too big. There. The two fists slammed together, and a ferocious explosion occurred in an instant. White gold flames rose into the sky, violent winds, and turbulent shock waves plowed the surrounding environment one after another. The resulting damage still shatters the ground. Power, nothing has changed. Vlad was not repelled by Kaido. In Zhurong mode, his explosive power has also been greatly improved. Although his power is not comparable to Kaido, the explosive power of the moment of blessing the flame is definitely not under Kaido. Now that Kaido had attacked, Vlad certainly wouldn't hold back. His right arm slammed back, his body was bullied, his left hand clenched a fist, flames shot out from his elbow, and his muscles bulged high. Dragon Fist. Super. One bone. The fists gathered in the amazing flame and terrifying power slammed heavily towards Kaido's head. The fist is still a little strong. Kaido didn't show weakness at all, and it was also a gathering of strength, and a powerful punch hit Vlad's fist directly. Woo ha 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 ha. Boom. The earth-shattering explosion. Vlad laughed. Kaido of the beasts, Kaido of the beasts, worthy of Kaido of the beasts. Vlad was not discouraged in the slightest, but the opponent was Kaido of the beasts, one of the 4 emperors, and it was surprising that he could easily get the victory. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Kaido like a machine gun. Ola 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 ola. With a wanton smile on Vlad's face, he kept roaring in his mouth. Boom 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 boom. The continuous explosions, Vlad's machine gun-like fist was caught by Kaido without a single punch. The speed of the two was shocking. You must know that Kaido can't fly and can fly in the air. The reason for the fierce battle with Vlad was because he jumped up just now, and now the two of them are fighting fiercely, and he has not yet fallen. Time has just lost a little bit. Vlad's observation hockey is, in such a fierce confrontation, his brain power is limited. Boom. The huge fist wrapped around the pitch-black hockey and slammed heavily on Vlad's face. Vlad's mind was blank, terrifying power, stronger than before. This guy Kaido, his power is still getting stronger. However, at the same time, Vlad's flaming punch also slammed into Kaido's face. Bah! The strong temperature made Kaido's face sound like meat being scorched by flames and splashing with grease. However, Vlad noticed that the damage was rapidly diminishing. Kaido, this guy, is gradually adapting to Vlad's high temperature. Boom. Whoosh. Kaido was slammed to the ground by Vlad's punch, and the already messy ground was instantly shattered. At the same time, Vlad was also blasted into the sky by Kaido's punch, far from the ground. So, Vlad suddenly realized something. This is the strongest creature. This is it, the beast. Chapter 317 The Sword of Running Water. Kaido is very wrong. A long time ago, Vlad felt this way when he first saw this monster with the big pirates. This guy is completely different from normal humans. Although I haven't seen him fighting in the past, I can still easily tell that this man is different, not just in terms of strength. It should be said that it is at the level of life but different, although the appearance is still human. However, it is more like a SSS.1a. This feeling is even more obvious after fighting with Kaido in person. He is unrestrained and fearless. On the spiritual level, Kaido is no different from the heroes on the sea. He even said that he is absolutely worthy of the title of the Emperor. No matter who the enemy is, no matter how many enemies there are, is the same fearless. However, this guy's body is not right. It's really wrong. So far, Kaido has shown a lot of peculiarities, one of which is the terrifying recovery ability. Even if it burns a hole in the face, it can quickly the terrifying resilience of recovery. It is not easy just to hurt him, and with such resilience, this man is like Charlotte Linlin. Even if he does nothing, just stand there and let it go. People beat him, and not many people at sea could threaten him. Second, the strange speed, or should be said, the strange speed change. Kaido, who is not very prominent in speed, was able to catch up with Vlad's speed in an instant, even if there is still a gap in pure speed, but the ability to react as for the speed of attack and defense, he has completely caught up with Vlad. No matter how you think about it, it's too weird. Third, the power of continuous strengthening. Although the power of the beginning has been terrifying abnormal, but the power of this monster is still constantly increasing, which is a considerable increase. Fourth, and the weirdest point is that when Vlad's fist wrapped in flames slammed heavily on his face just now, even if it was wrapped around hockey, the terrifying temperature combined with the strong impact was an instant hit. Kaido caused damage, and even burned a hole in Kaido's face. However, such injuries were rapidly weakened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not recovery, but the damage caused by the fire was weakening. Is it adaptation or defense enhancement? This guy, his body is definitely not right. So, the question is this guy Kaido an ability? Are these situations caused by Kaido's abilities? Vlad is very sure, Kaido is not a capable person. The title of the strongest creature has been circulating for a long time. Kaido's immortality has been feared by the world for a long time. But Vlad, a few years ago I have also seen that Kaido crossed the sea with his and swam directly to the Cake Island to challenge the big pirates, making it clear that he was not a capable person. Therefore, the source of all this strangeness is probably this man's body. Brush. The two pairs of wings Vivi opened. Vlad stabilized in midair, shook his head lightly, even with hockey defense, plus the terrifying defense of Jurong mode, but he was still punched by a punch. He was dizzy, and there was bright red blood flowing from his head. What a strong sense of sight. Vlad did not drop his height. Since the speed is not dominant, Kaido's strength and defense are still increasing, which means that close combat is not cheap. Then Vlad's choice is also it's obvious. Beasts, beasts. Vlad raised his right hand, and the platinum flames surged out, converging into a huge fire column that shot straight into the sky. Doesn't he look a lot like Mr. Passo? Woo. The flames rolled back violently, and a huge fireball appeared on Vlad's palm, with a diameter of more than 100 meters, which was extremely terrifying. But it's not over yet. Vlad's flame is not just a simple flame. The semi-fluid flame has almost a shape, that is to say, Vlad's flame is compressible. Bang! 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 As if the heart was undulating, the flames kept going back from Vlad's body towards the fireball. Then, the fireball shrank one by one, and in the blink of an eye, it shrank into a small ball less than 1 meter in diameter. It was amazing. The light radiated from above, and it even covered the sun in the sky. Under the strong brilliance, Vlad closed his eyes unconsciously. Is this the truth of the beasts? Vlad muttered to himself, feeling that he was very close to the truth. The ability Kaido showed, he had seen similar in another person. The difference is that the ability of that person is not permanent, but required drug-induced. That's just too much fun. This monster is actually... Well, these things are all right. Vlad gently swung his right hand down, causing the shining fireball to fall gently. Helios. Dash 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 dash. While Vlad and Kaido were fighting fiercely, the battle continued on the other side of the battlefield. Two groups of people, two small battlefields, the battle was equally fierce. When the general's heavy slashes and powerful slashes made Kazuki Oden's arms go numb. He had to admit that this man, who has always been in a high position, but his reputation was so underappreciated that he was often overlooked, was indeed an amazing man. Swordsmanship. Kazuki Oden, don't you care about your disciples? The subordinates I brought are not easy to deal with. Kazuki Oden's chest at a strange angle. No. Kazuki Oden only felt the hairs rise, but he didn't panic. He turned his body gently, and easily avoided the general's blow, and then slashed the long knife sharply, and slashed towards the general's neck condescendingly. Now, he has no choice but to die. That kid, his strength doesn't require me to help him. Hey. Even in the middle of a fierce battle, the two men were able to chat calmly. Dash 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 dash. These guys are so troublesome. Sakata forced back a man in black with a knife, looking a little troubled. Although these men in black have the same fighting power, they add up to being very difficult, not like a samurai, but like a soldier. Extremely he is good at cooperating in battle. Although there are more than a dozen people, they fight like one person. Although Sakata has 2 knives by himself, his opponent has more than a dozen knives, which is really troublesome to fight. No way, it seems that we have to move something real. Sakata thought so after another inevitable attack was blocked by several swords at the same time. Hey, you guys, have you watched the flow of water seriously? Sakata said softly. The 2 swords in his hands seemed to be covered with a layer of water. Flowing water. Chapter 318 Kaido, the Beast. Running water is not the name of a simple technique, but the name of the school of swordsmanship held by Sakata, not the unique school of swordsmanship practiced by Kazuki Oden, but Sakata created his own style of swordsmanship after merging the family swordsmanship and what Kazuki Oden taught him. X23 US. Com updates fastest. Kazuki Oden expressed his recognition of the school created by his disciples. He believes that the school created by Sakata is enough to establish a school in Wano-kuni and establish a kendo hall to recruit students. That is to say, at that time, Kazuki Oden thought that his disciples were no longer under the strength of those long-established swordsman masters, and this man, who was called the first warrior of Wano-kuni with his superb swordsmanship, thought so. He really thought that his disciple was no weaker than any Wano-kuni swordsman master. That year, Sakata was 15 years old. As he himself said, this man is a genuine swordsman genius, and all swordsmanship can be mastered in a while, and his teacher, Kazuki Oden, believes that this man will reach far and wide sooner or later. Beyond the level of his predecessors, he couldn't just let Sakata leave his apprenticeship so easily. Although he has a strong power, Kazuki Oden believes that his disciple's will is not mature enough. However, this has no effect on the current battle between Sakata and the men in black. Bulu. Quote. As if the real water was surging, the 2 knives in Sakata's hands glowed a faint blue like a real water flow, and they looked extremely beautiful. Next, it's not a joke. Sakata said in his heart. The people in black were not frightened. It doesn't matter what kind of tricks Sakata uses. These shadow warriors cultivated by the generals do not have their own feelings. They only need to kill their enemies. What kind of counterattack is not in their consideration at all. Crack. The cold light was cold, and the 7 long knives ripped apart the air, glowing with poignant light, drawing a beautiful arc in the air, and slashed straight at Banshin. There is no mercy, there is no water release, the so-called honor of the samurai is like bullshit to them, these guys are just weapons for killing. It's useless. Sakata thought so quietly. A very beautiful halo, the faint blue halo spreads in the air. Like a dream, the soft water waves suddenly emerge from the air and pass through the air leisurely. Quote exclamation mark. A series of crisp chirps sounded, like waves rolling over. The long knife in Banshin's right hand has a strong and irresistible force, just like the waves of the ocean. Knife. That's it, it's over. Sakata swung out the knife in his left hand. The stream. The knife in his left hand swung out, and the sharp blade wrapped around the strong armament haki, pointing directly at the necks of several men in black. Scoff. Just like the replay of the previous confrontation between the two sides, the remaining men in black immediately responded to Sakata's counterattack. The three blocked Sakata's attack, and the remaining four slashed at Sakata's defenseless back with knives. It seems that you have not carefully observed the running water. Sakata sighed. So, water, but all pervasive, no omission. Chi. Ding 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 ding. Quote. After the sound of blood splashing, there was the sound of the continuous handover of weapons, just like a concert sounded at a glance, and it was extremely pleasant. Left. 7. Sakata thought so quickly. Dash 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 dash. Boom. Me. Kazuki Oden looked a little surprised. The strong wind blew through the sky, and the ground flew sand and rocks in an instant. The sky and the earth were turbid. He could clearly see that in the distant place, a huge fireball like the sun rose from the ground. Bring the strong wind already dazzling light. It's really like the sun has fallen. Hey, don't look around. Scoff. Kazuki Oden stepped back abruptly, and there was already a not shallow wound on his chest. The general smiled, stepped on his feet, and his body shot out, straight at Kazuki Oden. Although you are already dead, don't die so easily. Dash 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 dash. Boom. The small ball of light has an extremely astonishing speed, and it just hit the ground in the blink of an eye. Vlad did not specifically aim, but just threw the small fireball down at will, aiming or not aiming at it. It doesn't matter whether it will hit Kaido directly or not. Because the huge fireball spread instantly, not an explosion, but a simple expansion. After the flames condensed to a few points, after losing Vlad's control, they would naturally spread, and the result was. Below Vlad, a huge fireball appeared. It easily devoured everything around it, and there is no so-called escape. The area covered by the fireball has been completely filled with flames, and there is absolutely no place to hide. The earth sinks and the mountains melt. The power of terror swept through everything. Helios, the original sun god of Vlad's previous life in Greek mythology, this blow even surpassed Apollo, who defeated the Golden Lion at that time. Me. Vlad frowned. No movement. What's going on? Although Vlad is suspended in the sky far away from the ground, it does not mean that he cannot grasp the movements of Kaido on the ground. His observation haki can easily present everything on the ground in front of him. So he could clearly observe that Kaido's body on the ground suddenly stopped and stayed where he was. He didn't know what he was doing. Of course, Vlad would not think that such a blow would be able to defeat Kaido. Would be defeated so easily, and that would not survive today. Although Vlad's observation haki is not good at detecting breath, he can also detect that Kaido is not hurt. Hey. What? An unusually surprised expression suddenly appeared on Vlad's face, even a little horrified. Below, small black dots rushed out of the fireball instantly and rose into the sky. Then it got bigger and bigger, and in the blink of an eye, it broke through the space interval, and it was only one step away from Vlad's position. This is. Vlad's eyes widened. Kaido, there is no doubt that the guy who rushes out can only be this guy Kaido. His body has undergone great changes. The upper body of the body has become thicker, and the skin on his body is no longer like skin. The thick stratum corneum is wrapped in black hockey and covers his body, terrifying defensive power. Even Vlad's Helios didn't hurt him much. It's just that in some places the skin is burned to expose the muscles, but it is also in the midst of crazy replies. What is even more eye-catching is that his legs have also become extremely thick, not only thick, but also longer. It seems that he has an extra leg bone and instantly turned into a long-legged family. It is really such a pair of legs for him. The terrifying bouncing power that can easily bounce to the height of the sky where Vlad is. Sure enough, the so-called beasts. Vlad clenched his fists, his muscles bulged high, and his eyes were already on the face of the monster that was getting closer and closer. Does it really mean 100 beasts? It's quite straightforward. This guy, is it man-made? Chapter 39 Lonely Monster. The huge fist is already close at hand, and the monster named Kaido with a ferocious smile is already approaching FWWW. With such a roar, Kaido's fist was bursting with blue veins. Compared with the first time, the volume has changed significantly, more than a circle. This guy is adjusting his body at any time, and he is playing against Vlad. In the process, he became stronger by constantly adapting to Vlad's fighting style. As expected, 100 beasts. The flames on Vlad's arms began to surge, and the white gold flames spewed out, at the elbow position for the next blow as the ultimate haste. Boom! Vlad threw a punch, Kaido threw a punch, and the two fists collided in the air. In the high sky, the raging flames bloomed like a beautiful flower, a violent shock wave. It brought a strong storm, blowing recklessly above the sky. Whoosh! Vlad's body was instantly blasted away, even with two pairs of wings, but in such a situation, he still couldn't stabilize his body shape. After all, flying in the air, he still wanted to maintain it under Kaido's astonishing force. Balancing is not an easy task. Fortunately, Kaido was even more unbearable than Vlad. Vlad could fly anyway, but Kaido jumped up directly with his bouncing power. There was no way to keep his balance in the air, so he was directly slammed down by Vlad. Is this the beast? Vlad thought so. It's definitely not a product of nature, it's definitely not born. This guy, it's a man-made creation. Vlad's conjecture about Kaido has finally taken shape now. Kaido is definitely not a normal life form, but a product of human technology. It's not groundless that Vlad would have such an idea. Kaido's ability is really similar to that of his scientist, Mr. Passo, and it's not something that Devil Fruit can explain. Passo is a leader in the study of lineage factors. He has conducted extremely in-depth research on the genetic level, and the research on human technology has reached a level that is unimaginable for ordinary people. He developed on the basis of his teacher's research results. A further gene drug has been developed, which can temporarily impart the genes of various animals in Passo, so as to achieve results beyond the ability of Zone's Devil Fruit. However, the ability that Kaido shows now is really quite similar to Passo's animal gummies. For example, when Passo first showed his animal gummies in front of Vlad, he used Gene Vlad's jaw-dropping recovery gummies can easily completely heal an otherwise fatal injury. Isn't this similar to Kaido's weird and even terrifying recovery ability? In the short period of time that Kaido played against, Kaido's strange adaptability really surprised Vlad, and he easily kept up with Vlad's speed. With the continuous improvement, the defense power has been greatly strengthened with the appearance of the stratum corneum on the skin just now, and then the bouncing power has also undergone earth-shaking changes. This kind of ability is really terrifying. Such an opponent, set as the strongest creature, well deserved. Vlad even wondered if Kaido would have evolved gills and webs if they were fighting under the sea, and it was very possible. Kaido's abilities are really similar to Passo's, but the difference is that Passo needs to eat the corresponding gummy to adjust his genes. Kaido doesn't need it. This guy can adjust himself at will according to his own will. The body is really terrifying ability. Therefore, Vlad boldly guessed that Kaido may be the product of the government experiment, the experimental product created by the scientific force led by Vegapunk when they were studying the bloodline factor. With the technology that surpasses Paso, the genes of many creatures are fused to create the strongest creature, which has the advantages of all creatures: strength, defense, physical strength, resilience, and the advantages of many creatures converge. Such a guy, not the strongest creature who is. I finally understand. Vlad thought, what a lonely fellow this guy, Kaido, is. Kaido is a man-made monster. Once this view is established, many of Kaido's incomprehensible behaviors can be explained clearly. Why do you like suicide? Because only oneself is different in this world. This world has no sense of belonging for Kaido. He is not a creature that should have been born in this world. He is an existence that should not have existed, and it will produce a strong sense of belonging. Self-destructive tendencies are a very normal thing. Similarly, because you can't get a sense of belonging, it is naturally a normal thing to want to destroy this world that doesn't belong to him and has no living space for him. If you can't get it, destroy it. Many people have such emotions. There are, so it seems that Kaido's previous behavior of wanting to kill himself and destroy the world can be explained clearly. Similarly, it is precisely because of his strong tendency to self-destruct that Kaido will repeatedly do things like one enemy. He just simply wants to die, but he has terrifying resilience and protection. No one can kill him. Vlad even guessed that even if Kaido wanted to die, when he really faced death, the animal genes in his body would burst into the most primitive survival instinct, just like Jack on Pokuro Island. Then, the reason for forming the Zone Core is also very clear. It is a very simple thing to gather hundreds of beasts and long for companions. Kaido's behavior is very understandable. Everything is because of loneliness. Living alone in a world full of aliens, to him, it is natural to feel lonely. Well, Kaido, who was kicked back by his punch, did not fall down as he had guessed. His long right leg stomped in the air, visible to the naked eye. The ripples spread in the air, and the monster bounced up like black lightning, and in an instant, it rushed in front of Vlad. Boom! PFF'd. The huge fist slammed heavily on Vlad's stomach. Even with Zhu Rong's defense, even with armament Haki's armor protection, Kaido's increasingly powerful punch still made Vlad spit out blood. The speed of Vlad flying upside down suddenly increased, flying towards the higher sky like a cannonball. This guy, the speed is still improving. Vlad was so shocked. What is his upper limit? Whoosh! A tyrannical voice came from Vlad's back. Little devil, wasn't it very arrogant just now? Vlad's eyes widened. While Vlad was being beaten by the ever-evolving Kaido, on the other side of the battlefield, the battle situation also had an amazing change. Chapter 320: The Destruction of Kazuki. Sakata swung out the knife. The name of this knife was Shilu, and his target was the man in black who had just been unprotected by him. X23 US. Com updates fastest. But the man in black was not the only one. Of course, the remaining men in black would not watch their accomplices being attacked. 3 knives stopped in front of him, and 4 knives stabbed him in the back. However, the long sword used by the man in black to block his attack still has a gap, and such a gap is not large. There are not many swordsmen in the world who can take advantage of such a gap, and Sakata happens to be one of them. As Sakata himself said, his sword is like flowing water, like a stream gurgling. Sakata's sword does not seem to be hard at all, just like real water, soft and pervasive. Twisting and twisting like water, the long knife easily passed through the 3 long knives in front of him, twisting as if it were stretching, understating the 7 men in black at the target. He wiped it on his neck, and at this moment, time passed. After that, Sakata even had enough time to turn around with a knife, swung another knife, and knocked back the long knives of the other 4 men in black. This time, there are only 7 left, and it will be solved soon. Sakata thought so. His eyes swept unscrupulously around the 7 men in black around him. He didn't think he would lose. In Sakata's view, victory was already in his hands. The number of people was suddenly halved, and 7 people were killed in the blink of an eye. Originally, such a situation could not have been worse for people in black, but although they were born as human beings, they did not have the feelings that humans should have. Yiren did not have the slightest sense of sadness, even if the dead were their companions who lived together day and night. They also did not have the slightest sense of panic, even in the face of an invincible enemy. They don't need to think, they just belong to the general's sharp sword, they just need to follow the general's footsteps to chop people, and they don't need to think about other things. Are you fearless even in the face of death? Sakata threw off the blood from the knife, and suddenly felt a little bored. These guys, it's better to die. Dash 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 dash. How? The scale of victory seems to be tilting in my direction. Kazuki Oden was ready to go, and stabbed suddenly. The air let out a weak whine, like a thunderstorm suddenly bursting above the clear sky, and the beautiful ripples like cherry blossoms rippled from the air. Kazuki Oden's sword suddenly disappeared into the air along with such cherry blossoms. Hey! General's shoulder. It didn't look like he was hit by a knife, but as if he was pierced by a powerful firearm. What's even more amazing is that Kazuki Oden's blow was piercing through. After touching the general's shoulder, the remaining strength was still unabated. It seemed that suddenly, a deep gully spread from the general's back. With a wanton smile on his face, the general didn't care about Kazuki Oden's blow at all, because the moment Kazuki Oden attacked, his attack also arrived. The top-to-bottom slashing was not some advanced swordsmanship, but the most basic one. One of the swordsmanship, however, the most ordinary swordsmanship that can only be used to lay the foundation can turn corruption into magic in the hands of a general, with impeccable speed, angle, and strength. PFF'd. Bright red blood splashed in the air, and even though Kazuki Oden stepped back immediately, there was still a deep, bone-deep scar on his chest. Hey. The general didn't rush to attack anymore. He put the long sword on his shoulder. It's amazing. Kazuki Oden, you guy, you're really amazing. This sentence, the general did not lie. He has always been a very conceited person, quite confident in his own strength, but, just like this, he has never been able to win this Kazuki Oden. The injury of the chest can simply be described by the word chess against the opponent. I regret it, Kazuki Oden. General said, I have always hated you. Not because of the fact that you were called the first warrior of Wano-kuni, but because you were able to go out into the sea, although other people don't know it, but I know these things. The expression on the general's face under the scarf is unknown, but his tone is indeed joyful. What I hate is that I have already been to the magnificent sea, but why are you willing to do it? Honestly, be a big name. It's ugly, it's really ugly. Kazuki Oden, I thought you were someone of my kind at first. General said, that's why I want to kill you. Unlike those ignorant names, you obviously have a heart that longs for change, but you let it get cold. I really want to kill you. You. But, just now, I realize that you may not be that annoying. General said, do you think so too? Maybe we can get along. It's just that it's a lot late, Your Excellency General. Kazuki Oden said, I will not get along with a man who colludes with foreign invaders. Really? The general looked a little annoyed. I wanted to say whether I could recruit you, but now it seems impossible. Kaido's beast will not leave easily. Then, Kazuki Oden. Since I can't recruit you, I have to ask you to die here. It seems that I have to make a quick decision. Your disciple is as good as you. My shadow warrior is so amazing in front of him. Unbeatable. The general's words also had a sense of appreciation. If I don't kill you, I'm afraid I will face the situation of being besieged next, which is not good. I can't make wrong judgments because of my personal emotions. I also look down on me a little too much. Kazuki Oden clenched the sword in his hand. Your Excellency General. No, Lord Kazuki. General said, I look down on you very much, so. Father. The cry of the little boy came from not far away, with an abnormally fearful appearance. Pamanasuk. Kazuki Oden turned his head sharply, only then did he see that his child had been carried by a man in black. As a father, seeing his child in danger, it was a failure. "Don't look around. Scoff." Accompanied by such a voice was a poignant sword light. "Me. Blood splatter. Look, that's what the distraction brings about." "Da." Along with the splash of blood, an arm fell to the ground. "Damn." Even with a broken hand, Kazuki Oden didn't seem to feel the pain at all, and all his attention was drawn to the little boy. It's so scary, so scary. My father, I'm so scared." The little devil was sobbing. Whoosh. Even if he was crying and sad, the man in black carrying Momonosuke was not at all soft-hearted. As soon as he twisted his waist and waved his arm violently, this little devil's head was thrown directly into the sky. He looked very tall. If he fell directly, needless to say, this 5-year-old kid had absolutely no reason to live. Momonosuke. Like this, Kazuki Oden didn't care about the enemy in front of him, let alone his injury, and ran straight towards his child, but the enemy general didn't stop him. "Wow wow wow wow." Quote. Crying loudly, the 5-year-old kid couldn't find a second way to ease his fear apart from crying. "Don't be afraid, Momonosuke." Suddenly, a warm embrace surrounds him, as reassuring as ever, because this is Father's arms. "Father." Momonosuke opened his eyes in surprise, and what caught his eyes was the face of his father with a smile. "Don't be afraid, Momonosuke, Dad is here." "Father, I'm so scared, Raizo, Kinemon, Kanjuro, they. The little child was crying like a mess. It's okay, they just went a long way." Kazuki Oden so comforted his child. "Don't be afraid, Momonosuke." Wow. The kid's cry suddenly turned into a scream. The point of a knife came out of his back and penetrated his body, extending from the body of his father, Kazuki Oden. A long knife went through Kazuki Oden's heart, and then pierced Kazuki Mamayuki held the body. Wow, what a touching father and son relationship. Behind Kazuki Oden, the man holding the handle of the knife in both hands smiled like this, "It really touched me. You bastard." Filled with unspeakable anger, nothing to do with stance, nothing to do with grudges, just the anger of being a father, Kazuki Oden turned his head, blood gushed from the corners of his mouth, and there was endless anger in his eyes. As a father, there is no way to protect his son, it is really ugly. In spite of your anger, in spite of your hatred. The general raised his right leg sharply, and the ferocious whip leg slammed heavily on Kazuki Oden's defenseless back, and the two father and son were blown away. "I've been ready since I decided to integrate the country." The general shook off the blood on the knife in his hand and said, "Prepare to meet everyone's hatred. Those who are not determined to bear everything can't accomplish anything." Teacher. Like a violent storm, a beautiful arc of azure blue came towards the general with the power to tear everything apart. "Oh." General raised the knife, "Here's a mad dog."